Abandoned by my fiancé. After 7 years together, I tried to move on, only to discover that he was dating a younger version of me. Hello everyone, I know it's hard to believe given how nauseatingly terrible I sound right now. But before this happened, I felt really confident and pleased. Almost all of my current friends are shared friends with my ex-fiancé, so I don't want to drag them into this drama or force anyone to take sides or feel uncomfortable. So I think I'm looking to this community for comfort and wisdom because I've read so much mature and grounded advice here. I hope this makes sense, as I'm now confined in a conference room with the shades closed so no one can watch me cry while I type this. I had been with my ex-fiancé for 7 years. He is the only romantic partner I've ever really loved. I was completely in love with him. Even after all of this, I still feel that way about him. He is pleasant, hilarious, friendly, quick-witted, intriguing, ambitious, and beautiful. We were engaged 2 years ago but weren't in a hurry to marry. About a year ago, we began seriously considering having a baby. We had lived blissfully together for 6 years. We'd done all of the traveling and partying we wanted in our 20s, and we were ready to start a family. Over the next 6 months, he was far busier than usual, but I didn't think anything was wrong. I did my best to relieve any additional tension he was suffering, despite the fact that I was myself under extra pressure at work. I took up all of the housekeeping and errands, helped him arrange and pack for vacations, and simply tried to be tolerant when he worked late or had to travel for a week or two. We didn't spend as much time together during that period, and I missed him terribly, but I assumed we were still happy. When the 6 months were up, our schedules returned to normal. I was relieved, until I noticed him becoming increasingly aloof. Despite the fact that we finally had more time together, he began using his phone more frequently and appeared to be more protective of it. I'm not usually jealous, and I entirely trusted him, so I didn't think much of it. Then, after another month had passed, I brought up the possibility of trying for a baby. As we talked about it, I knew something was amiss. He remained quiet for a while. Then he unleashed a flood. He stated that he was unhappy with our relationship and had been for some time. He said he cared dearly for me, but the spark in our relationship had faded. He had tried to convince himself that he could live without that spark, but he had eventually realized that he couldn't. He told me I had done nothing wrong and was, in fact, the ideal partner, but he couldn't get rid of the nagging feeling that I wasn't the right one for him. He claimed he didn't want to hurt me, but he couldn't subject himself to a lifetime of settling for someone who wasn't his dream girl, even though he had no idea if his dream lady existed. He apologized, but he couldn't live a lie anymore. I don't think I said anything when he was telling me this since I was so stunned and surprised. I just stood there, watching and listening, crying quietly. When he finished, all I could say was, "Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Do you still love me?" He pondered for a moment before admitting that he still loved me but was no longer in love with me. We spent the entire night talking about his thoughts and our relationship until we were both weary and unable to cry. As the sun rose, he apologized again and suggested that he remain at a friend's apartment. So he packed some things and left. That was roughly 5 months ago. We never truly spoke in person again. His brother and best friend came over that weekend to get the rest of his belongings. I fled while they were packing because I couldn't tolerate being there. I was so surprised, numb, traumatized, and exhausted that I didn't cry much. I couldn't quite understand what was going on while I went through the processes of moving out and explaining the issue to my family. When I eventually got to my new house and sat alone with my boxes, I completely broke down. I couldn't stop crying and dry heaving. I ended up utilizing 5 vacation days to take a week off from work, which irritated my boss. I was unable to get out of bed. I scarcely ate, surviving on an old tub of peanut butter. I searched through all of our previous photos and attempted to figure out where everything went wrong. Then, for 4 months, I did my best to move on. I deactivated all of my social media apps so that I would not have to see him. I dove right into work. I increased my hobbies. I exercised to keep my mind busy. I met with friends and family and pretended everything was fine. I started seeing my therapist again, which helped a little. I finally thought I saw light at the end of the tunnel. Then, about a month ago, I ran into an old college pal. She claimed it was quite upsetting to realize that we weren't together anymore and astonished to see how quickly he'd moved on. I told her I wasn't keeping up with him anymore, but I was doing fine. When I came home, despite knowing it was a bad idea, I reinstalled Instagram and went to his profile. His most recent photo was taken during his cousin's wedding, with his arm around a beautiful female. All of the old photos of him and me were removed from his profile. Again, I realized it was a bad, self-destructive notion, but I looked up the girl's profile and Googled her. She is actually a younger, smarter, prettier, and better version of me. We attended the same university, but she graduated from a prominent program that I was not accepted into. We both have green eyes and brown hair, but she is significantly more attractive and like a model. We're both slender and fit, but she has a stunning hourglass body. She appears far more stylish than I do and has tens of thousands of followers, despite the fact that she is not an influencer. In reality, we work for the same company. I'm pretty sure my ex met her at work, but she got a job in a prestigious division right out of college and probably makes more money than I do. She is a better version of me, 7 years younger. And the love of my life is dating her. For the past month, I've been spiraling. I can't quit thinking about my ex-fiancé and this girl. I peek at her Instagram every day and torture myself with her stunning photos. She's shared a dozen photos of my ex in the last few months, and he looks so happy, healthy, and fit. They've been on excursions together. He has brought her to his hometown. He's even shared a picture of them with a sappy remark, which he never did when we were together. I have no evidence, and I doubt my ex would do this, but I now believe he was at least interested in her while we were still together. She joined the organization around a year ago. I'm so worried about running into them. I understand that my behavior is compulsive and masochistic. I've uninstalled Instagram and promised myself I'd never do it again, only to wake up the next day, reinstall the app, and repeat the process. My therapist has been trying to help, but I can't get over this. I'm locked in a mental loop of self-loathing and self-pity, a bizarre combination of tremendous melancholy and latent wrath. I feel very depressed, useless, used up, rejected, and suddenly very old. I understand that comparison is the thief of joy. I know I'm still young enough to move on. I understand that social media is a highlight reel, and their relationship may not be ideal. I know this girl hasn't done anything wrong to me. I understand that my ex deserves to find his perfect girl. But none of this takes away from the reality that I expected to be pregnant with the love of my life by this time of year. Instead, I am alone, and he has found someone better. If you've had a similar experience, please offer your advice or sympathize with me. I do not know. I feel so worthless and alone. Update. Hello again, guys. It's been 3 months since I wrote about my inability to move on from my 7-year relationship with my ex-fiancé. While I wince at the thought of how terrible I was when I wrote that post, crying alone in that conference room, I was astounded by the sensitive, mature, and useful advice I received from users of this subreddit. These last few months have been an absolute roller coaster, and I felt I owed this subreddit an update after how much comfort and counsel you all provided me during some of my worst days. I don't think things would have turned out quite as well if I had continued to bottle up my repressed emotions and isolate myself. So I'm grateful to everyone who left comments and messaged me. Thank you very much. So this is what occurred. As several of you suggested, I blocked my ex-fiancé and his girlfriend on Instagram the same night I wrote that post. I believe that verbalizing how obsessive and masochistic my behavior was, rather than keeping it all inside, and finally feeling validated in my emotional reactions after reading your supportive comments, rather than feeling alone and crazy, triggered something in my brain. I vowed to break out of that self-destructive cycle, to stop tormenting myself with their gorgeous photographs, and to restore some sense of self-worth. It was a huge relief not to be constantly drawn to their new photos. Instead, I gave myself some time to recover rather than scratching at the scab every day. That weekend, I resolved to reconnect with my family and friends and stop acting that I was handling the breakup perfectly. They were tremendously compassionate, but also surprised that I had been able to conceal my terrible emotions so well. It seemed like I had instantaneously rebuilt my support network. I had no idea how emotionally isolated I'd gotten until I was able to be honest and open with the people in my life. I continued to avoid talking to friends who were shared friends with my ex because I didn't want to put anyone in an embarrassing situation. But I was able to reconnect with a couple of my other friends, and I took the initiative to finally organize some fun activities. Getting out of the house to enjoy breakfasts, hikes, and shows with my friends in recent months has been really beneficial to my mental health. Even though I am an introvert, simply being in various surroundings and focusing on people other than my ex was beneficial. I also chose to try another therapist based on your ideas. My initial therapist was fairly helpful, but considering that he was in his late 50s, I felt he couldn't relate to some of the complexities in my concerns. So there was a bit of a generational difference. My new therapist is extremely compatible with me and immediately comprehended the complexities of my issues. She has been quite helpful in addressing the underlying causes of my concerns, and she has been able to validate and examine my emotions in a much more intimate manner. If you're having trouble finding a therapist who is a good fit for you, I strongly advise you to look around. Therapy is definitely not one size fits all. Another frequent suggestion from you was to locate another employment away from my ex-fiancé and his girlfriend. I didn't think it was possible because the job market in my field isn't fantastic right now. However, I began aggressively looking for other opportunities. I updated my resume, filled out a few applications, and, surprisingly, got an interview. Then, unexpectedly, someone in my division above me left to work for a competitor. The senior managers wanted to fill his position fast, so they went with an internal hire. After 5 or 6 rounds of interviews, God, I loathe them, I was hired. I am quite pleased for this promotion. Not only is the salary significantly higher, but the hours are more consistent as well. It's crazy, I feel like my life's momentum has flipped so suddenly. And I finally got an office. It's small, but I truly like it. The only drawback was that this promotion required me to remain working in the same building, albeit a very large one, as my ex. I ran into my ex as I was leaving work before Christmas, which was something I had been dreading. We exchanged some niceties, and he admired my new haircut. I thanked him, wished him well, and said that I needed to hurry to catch the next train. I wish I could say I was calm and collected, but I was so scared to meet him again after 6 months that I practically shook. On the way home, I relaxed and realized, hey, that wasn't so bad. He looked good, but I didn't get any feelings of grief or yearning. I largely felt uneasy, as if we had become strangers again. I didn't feel the customary want to stalk his Instagram and was really relieved to discover that he was doing well, especially because I'd cared for him for so many years. I felt like I was finally moving forward. The next morning, I awoke to a dozen messages from my ex-fiancé. They started at roughly 2 a.m. These were slightly nonsensical in times, so I'm guessing he was a little inebriated when he sent them. They were all long walls of text, which shocked me because he doesn't usually express his feelings verbally. He wrote that he couldn't stop thinking about me when we met outside the workplace. He expressed sadness that we were no longer friends because I still felt like his best buddy. And he lamented how things turned out. He said he wondered if he'd made a major mistake in a moment of weakness and upended his entire life, and that seeing me made him regret it all. He apparently saw that I had blocked him on Instagram, which I thought was humorous given how much I had been following his account, and he stated it made him really upset. I concluded from his texts that he had most likely broken up with the woman I had seen on his Instagram. He stated that he thought he had been hunting for a perfect lady who does not exist, and that he wanted to reignite our spark after failing to find it with others. I won't lie, reading his texts was shocking. I was trembling and having trouble processing a lot of things at first. Part of me wished, impulsively, to give him another chance. But after pondering his words for a day, I concluded that he was less sorry for losing our relationship and more regretful that the better pastures he wanted were not as green as he had hoped. I tried to react sweetly but firmly, noting that while I valued and respected our friendship, I no longer trusted him to the same extent that I once did. I told him that I believed it would be complicated and painful for us to become friends in the near future. I stated how hurt I was when he surprised me after assuring that everything was well, and how I had battled for a long time to figure out what was missing in our relationship. But, ultimately, I felt that if he thought the missing piece was so important that he wanted to leave after all those years together, we probably weren't meant to be. I wished him the best. He did not reply to my mails. I was disturbed by the whole affair, but I went on to enjoy my holiday break with my family, even attending my friend's New Year's Eve party, which I had considered skipping. Well, I'm so pleased I didn't skip the party since I met a fantastic man there. He's hilarious, clever, cute, engaging, empathetic, and anxious to settle down and have children, despite having recently ended a long-term relationship. We've been on 3 dates so far, and at the risk of sounding overly exuberant, they've been the best of my life. We want to take it slowly because we were both in long-term relationships only a year ago, but we've been surprised by how similar our personalities, hobbies, and aspirations are. Frankly, we both want to start a family as soon as feasible. So, while I try not to be overconfident in our relationship, I am also very excited to see where it goes. To summarize, thanks in large part to the counsel I received 3 months ago on this subreddit, I've emerged from a very dark place and am now cautiously excited about my future, for the first time in a long time. Now to the next story, story 2. I found out my child is my brother's. I decided to divorce. My parents begged me to stay silent because my father-in-law invests in their company. I, 28M, have been married for 3 years, and my wife Jade, 26F, and I have been together for 6 years. We had our first child a few months ago, but I only recently discovered that the baby is my brother's biological child. My brother Grant, 32 million, had been having an affair with Jade for the previous 3 years. It began just a few weeks after our wedding, and I had no idea until a few weeks ago. To be honest, I had been having trouble connecting emotionally with the infant for some reason. I had been feeling like a bad father because I didn't feel very attached to my own child. I still don't understand why that was happening. Maybe it was just a gut feeling. One night, I was discussing this with Jade, and I burst into tears because I felt so guilty. Instead of soothing me, she began sobbing uncontrollably. That's when the full truth came out. She agreed that it wasn't my fault that I didn't feel connected to the baby wasn't mine. She had already received the paternity test results but chose not to inform me. She said the affair ended shortly after she discovered she was pregnant and that she and Grant had no contact with each other anymore. She wanted to focus on me and our marriage. But once she told me the truth, it was too late. I started packing right away and went, despite the fact that it was late at night. Since then, I have been staying at a hotel. Jade attempted to stop me. She was quite furious, but I just left. I even blocked her, so she couldn't reach me. Since then, this has drained a lot of my emotional energy. For the first few days, I couldn't process what was going on. I did not even inform my parents about it. But they found out, thanks to Jade and Grant. Instead of comforting me, they called, said they knew everything, and then began telling me that whatever had happened was in the past. They claimed that Jade had made a mistake, but as her husband, I had to forgive her, put everything else aside, and focus on our family and our marriage. I had no concept what they meant by family, because the infant was not mine. It was ludicrous of them to advise that I raise the baby as a father and stay with Jade despite everything. I believed they were insane, but my dad eventually told me the reality. Apparently, this was merely a commercial transaction for my parents. My father-in-law intended to invest in my father's failing logistics business in order to restore it. My father-in-law runs numerous established enterprises and is financially secure. I knew my parents were always impressed with the family I married into, but I never imagined it would mean so much to them. Apparently, this investment has been in the works for quite some time, and they intended to surprise us with it in a few weeks once everything was finalized. However, divorcing Jade would have a negative impact on their personal ties. They were concerned that my father-in-law would reconsider investing in the firm. According to my parents, my father sorely needed this money to keep his firm running. That's why they wanted me to suck it up, remain silent, and not make a big fuss about it. They wanted me to pretend everything was fine, raise my brother's child as if it were my own, and forgive my unfaithful wife, all in order to complete their commercial agreement. I was so horrified, I hung up and blocked them. Then, just for good measure, I started looking for a lawyer right away. As soon as I met someone suitable, I filed for divorce. Jade was served approximately 3 days ago. On the same day, I decided to contact my parents, in-laws, every business acquaintance of my father that I knew, a couple of employees in my father's firm, a few family friends, and some cousins to inform them of my current predicament. It took me a few hours to get everyone's email addresses, but once I did, I notified them all about my wife cheating on me with my brother. I also confessed that my parents had encouraged me to remain silent and pretend everything was normal so that they might acquire an investment. Then I sent an email. Now, my folks are inundating my phone with emails, SMS, and phone calls from numerous numbers and accounts. They are really furious about what I have done since, of course, they will no longer receive that investment. On top of that, they have lost their reputation. They want me to apologize, as if that will resolve everything. They also inform me that Jade is distraught and has been diagnosed with postpartum depression, suggesting that my actions will only make matters worse. She is really miserable, and they are attempting to make me feel bad. But, honestly, I don't feel awful about anything. I think they earned it. So, am I the asshole for exposing the truth about my wife and parents, embarrassing them in public? Edit. Okay, I see there are a lot of questions concerning Grant, his relationship with Jade and me, and other things. So I will address that. Grant and I had a fairly normal connection, as most brothers do. The entire event was totally unexpected. We haven't spoken once since finding out. Grant had an apparently typical connection with Jade. I never suspected there was anything going on between them. Furthermore, Grant had always been a loner who had no interest in sticking with one woman for an extended period of time. His job forced him to travel frequently, and aside from that, he was spontaneous and always on the go, completely unlike me. From what I understood, he was never Jade's type, either in appearance or demeanor. So, obviously, none of this made sense to me. Jade informed me that they just started hooking up after we got married, and it ended when she discovered she was pregnant. She might be saying the truth or not. But, even then, I saw nothing strange. They were just very excellent at concealing it. Whatever it was, I always assumed they were only friendly with each other. I'm not exactly sure why Jade cheated on me. When she was attempting to persuade me to stay and justifying herself, she mentioned how I overworked at the beginning of our marriage. I had just started working because I did not want to continue my father's business. I knew I needed to work hard if I wanted to advance. Sure, some may say I was serious about my profession, but I never overworked or carried my work home with me. I believe she was just bored and wanted an excuse to meet up with someone else, which is exactly what she did. Any other reason she provides is only an attempt to rationalize her behavior because she does not want to recognize that this was totally her fault. That is pretty much all I know about Grant and his relationship with Jade. Update 1. Thank you all for your comments and support. It means a lot to me, especially given my current situation. Everyone hates me, whether it's my parents or my in-laws, because they believe I embarrassed them by informing so many people about what Jade did, including those who didn't need to know. It's been a few days, and I've spent every second either drowning in work at the office or returning to the hotel and deleting the innumerable texts and emails my parents continue to send me from various accounts. They are absolutely relentless. They're simply not going to quit. I try blocking them, but they keep creating new accounts and numbers. I'm not even sure why they're going to such extremes. The damage is already done. My apologies will not change the reality, nor will they become more respectable. My in-laws reached out to me a few days ago. They explained that my email was entirely unnecessary. They discovered who else I had emailed it to and accused me of sending it to a group of individuals my parents knew solely to disgrace them. However, they allege that because I did so, Jade was also humiliated. I don't understand why I should feel awful about that. That woman literally cheated on me with my brother and was content to let me believe the baby was mine, enabling me to raise my brother's child as my own, until she broke down that night. She did something disgusting. She completely earned this. I didn't bother responding to my in-laws since I really just want to move on from this. I'm currently waiting for Jade's lawyer to react to the divorce filing. In my opinion, I've been quite fair, and I just hope she doesn't complain about anything. As for the baby, it isn't mine, so I won't be donating anything. I might be the father mentioned on the birth certificate, but that makes no difference to me. I don't detest the baby or anything. In fact, the baby is the only fully innocent individual in the whole affair. I honestly feel horrible for him because he will pay the price for his parents' misdeeds. Even still, it is not my job to care for a child who is not biologically mine, especially if the real father is my brother. If Jade brings up anything regarding the kid, I already know I'm not going to accept responsibility. I'm basically ready for every potential circumstance because I have no idea what to expect right now. I haven't spoken to Jade since I left, and I don't want to ever speak to her again. I know she is unhappy right now, enough people have told me so. Even as I was leaving, I could tell she was really sad. I just hope her pain doesn't lead her to believe she can dispute the divorce and convince me to stay, because that will never happen. At all costs. I will do whatever it takes to get out of this circumstance. In the meantime, I'm hoping she doesn't drag this out and make things much more difficult than they currently are. Please keep me in your prayers, and I hope she does not oppose the divorce and make matters worse for everyone concerned. She still has a few days to respond, so I'm praying she makes the correct decision. Update 2. Hello everyone, it's been a week since my last update, and today I finally received a response from Jade and her lawyer. Fortunately, she is not opposing the divorce. But now there's another issue. She has provided a child custody agreement, insisting that I step forward as the biological father. She even wrote a statement stating that because I am included on the birth certificate, even though I am not the biological father, I have been involved in the baby's life for the past few months and must accept responsibility, whether I like it or not. It was infuriating. The name on the birth certificate is meaningless in comparison to the paternity test findings. So I immediately contacted my lawyer, and we decided to proceed with disestablishing paternity. That way, I can be legally released from all obligations for the infant. Until the legal process is completed, I will be presumed to be the legal father. But the infant is just 4 months old, so I don't believe it will matter too much. I'm still optimistic that the procedure will be done shortly. My lawyer promised me that the process would not be difficult. Given the baby's age, my absence is unlikely to have any effect on him. He'll most likely forget that I ever existed in his life. It would have been a much bigger problem if I had discovered it later, when he was older. But for now, everything should be good. To be honest, I'm pleased I found out when I did. If this had occurred later, I'm not sure how difficult it would have been to deal with, especially emotionally. I might have developed a bond to the baby, making things even more confusing. I am also relieved that I was unable to bond with the baby at first. I had read about it online and discovered that many new parents face similar challenges, so I hoped that with time, I would bond with the baby like a normal father. But now I thank God that didn't happen. The remorse I felt for not connecting with him prompted me to confess it to Jade, revealing the truth. If I had bonded with the infant, I might not have found out. That is the only silver lining in this whole mess. Another source of relief is that, in recent days, my parents have finally decided to back off, at least temporarily. I'm not sure what their future plans are, but happily, they haven't texted or bothered me. It has just been radio silence. Now that I've had some time to evaluate my future, I'm thinking about moving out of the hotel and into an apartment near my workplace. At the moment, all I want to do is work and sleep. Of course, I can't remain at a hotel indefinitely, it'll get too expensive. So I approached a few acquaintances to put me in touch with a realtor. I'll see where it goes. I've also started responding to everyone who answered my email. Surprisingly, quite a few people expressed sympathy and compassion for me. I'm not sure if their worry was real, but I decided the nice thing to do was answer. Now that I think about it, they must have felt odd receiving such an email. The very least I could do was acknowledge them. Almost 90% of the folks in my family who received the email expressed sympathy and confidence that everything will be all right. The majority of the employees ignored the email, but a handful of my father's business associates responded in like. I thanked everyone, including a few folks I hadn't originally contacted. I'm guessing they got out from other sources, as I'm sure this spread like wildfire as family gossip. But as long as people reach out to express their sympathy, I'm fine with it. At the very least, they are not attempting to obtain additional information. It may appear needy, but right now, I'm quite content to receive whatever lovely words come my way, whether they're true or not, from friends or relatives. Because, no matter how unhappy I am, I still miss her. I miss being with her. I miss my parents and family. I miss when everything was normal. Despite the fact that they betrayed my confidence, I believe it is quite reasonable for me to feel this way. It's not like I can turn a switch and stop caring. It will take me a long time to completely digest everything. But for the time being, I'm in a strange emotional limbo in which I'm unsure how to cope. I feel quite alone right now, but I suppose things will improve someday. I don't think I'll ever be able to totally accept it. Jade was the first woman I ever truly loved, but life won't stop for me. I still need to work. I still have to deal with all of the practical issues, and I have to keep going forward. It sucks. But that's the way it is. Update 3. Hello, everyone. I filed a petition to disestablish paternity about a week ago, and both parents were summoned before family court. Of course, Jade lost her head over it. She didn't know how else to contact me, so she created a phony Facebook account and began phoning me over Messenger. This happened yesterday while I was at a meeting, so I had my phone on quiet. I hadn't even noticed it at first. Later, when I checked, I discovered that she had contacted me approximately 12 times in 45 minutes. She had also sent me a slew of angry messages when I didn't answer. Apparently, she believes Grant and I have ruined her life. She told me that she did not break up with Grant after the pregnancy. Rather, he dumped her after discovering she was pregnant since he did not want anything serious. That's when she decided to continue with me, knowing that I was committed to her. But then she discovered that Grant was the father, so she tried to contact him again. This time, he simply informed her to end the pregnancy since he was not ready to be a father and had no intention of committing to her. She kept attempting to reach him, but he simply ignored her. He eventually blocked her totally. She told me everything in her messages. Now she accuses me of abandoning her, just as my brother did. And that, it appears, is how the two of us ruined her life, by leaving her alone with a baby. Grant has made it abundantly apparent that he is not interested in raising the child with her. Even if she gets him to pay child support, she won't be able to make him a true parent. And now, she claims, she and the baby will suffer. I cannot understand how any of this is my fault. I can see why she believes Grant ruined her life, despite the fact that she had an affair with him knowing exactly who he was and that he disliked being tied down. But how does she blame me? The mental gymnastics here are insane. After reading her communications, it became evident to me that she only wanted to play the victim. In any case, I didn't want to talk to her, so I blocked her. If she knows what is best for her, she will not argue the paternity issue and will allow me to disestablish fatherhood peacefully. This allows her to save time, money, and resources while focusing on getting Grant to step up and pay child support. She's pursuing the wrong brother, that's all I have to say about it. Anyway, the whole problem will be resolved in court, so I don't want to worry about it right now. In addition, I had my parents' support. But recently, I believe they have chosen to leave me alone. In my previous update, I noted that they hadn't troubled me in a few days. Since then, they have not texted me at all. This could be the quiet before the storm, or they may discover they have already lost their reputation and investment. Making me apologize won't solve anything for them. According to what I've heard from a few relatives, my parents have gone utterly missing. They have canceled all of their social media accounts, stopped communicating with family members, and, as far as I know, my father's business has been defunct for quite some time. People believe he is in the process of selling everything, which is why the company is closed. If that's the case, I know he'll be devastated. He was always quite proud of what he created. Ah well. My father is almost in his late 50s, so I hope he has enough savings to retire. I don't believe he can start again and work for someone else at this point in his life. I am not on good terms with him right now, but I know he used to work hard. Perhaps he messed up recently, but he had always tried to be a decent parent to me. So, I hope everything works out for him. That being said, I hope I don't have to speak with him for a while. I'm just not prepared for it yet. Even without me, they still have Grant. He makes a nice living, and I don't think it bothers them that he is rarely at home. He does not have a family, and I doubt he intends to establish one. So, if my parents don't have enough savings, they can always rely on Grant. He may become their retirement fund, and honestly, I hope Jade does the same thing. I hope she gets some child support from him. That'll be enjoyable. Fun for me, but not so much for him. But after everything he's done to ruin my marriage and the life I've created for myself, that's the least I can hope for him. Anyway, that's all for now. I'll post again if anything more happens. Please keep me in your prayers, and thank you all again for your love and support. Update 4. Hello guys, I haven't posted here in a while since I've been quite busy. I suppose my previous update was about 5 weeks ago. But, in the interim, I was able to officially end paternity. That means I will not be paying child support or accepting any responsibility. It was a major victory for me, especially since I assumed she would try her hardest to drag it out. Fortunately, she did not contest it. I believe she realized that opposing it would be a waste of time, money, and resources. Clearly, the family court judge was no fool. She had already refused to comply and provide the paternity test results, so I had to do them separately. But this was not going to influence the outcome. She could have kept it for as long as she wanted, even 10 years, but it would have made no difference because I was not the father. Anyway, I was able to verify that the infant was not my biological child. And because I had only been in his life for 4 months, the court determined that my absence would have little influence on him. That is how I obtained what I desired. Since then, I haven't spoken with Jade, and happily, she hasn't bothered me. My parents' firm has been sold, and they are preparing to relocate, according to a handful of cousins. They've only told a few individuals where they're going, those who have stuck by them during this whole ordeal. But really? It's not difficult for me to guess. I believe they are relocating to my uncle's home in Iowa so that my mother can join her brother in managing the farm they inherited from their parents. This was always her plan. She had offered it to my father several times over the years, but he had no desire to leave the city. They used to argue about it a lot. Now, he does not really have an option. So he has finally agreed. At the very least, my father will continue to be a member of a family business, albeit not the one he had hoped to lead indefinitely. But all of that is in the past. I've been trying to move on from what happened. I have been going to therapy. I have been going to the gym. I have been actively working on myself. I wouldn't claim I've fully recovered, that would be a lie, but I am in the process of moving on. Some days are excellent. Some days are especially difficult. But I am getting by. Update 5. It has been over 6 months since my previous update. A lot of time has passed, and I'm feeling considerably better. I was promoted at work, most likely as a result of all those months spent immersing myself in work to keep myself distracted. Certainly not a healthy coping strategy, but at least something positive came from it. Also, I'm officially divorced. It was finalized a few months ago, but I forgot to mention it here. Because there wasn't much to divide and she didn't want alimony, the process was rather simple. We simply had to wait for the necessary time period to pass before it could be finalized. So, yes. We're officially divorced now. I haven't seen her since then, but a few weeks ago, I learned from some common friends that she had moved back in with her parents. She's currently raising her son with them. Until lately, she had been living independently in the property we used to share, but I suppose she can no longer afford the rent without me. Perhaps she merely wanted extra assistance from her parents. Honestly, hearing this bit of gossip prompted me to post this update. I hadn't given it much thought because I've been so busy. But when our mutual friends informed me of her condition, I felt compelled to return here and share. As for Grant, I believe he is the only one who has come out of this disaster undamaged. I'm not going to lie, I'm a little jealous of him. According to what I've heard from relatives, he appears to be doing well. But at the end of the day, he remains a homewrecker. He is still a bad person. So, I believe karma will catch up with him someday. Meanwhile, I'm going to focus solely on myself. Now to the next story, story 3. My husband was manipulated by his mother and demanded a paternity test for our child. I agreed, but my mother-in-law tampered with the results. I, 28F, have been with my spouse, Mark, 30M, name changed for privacy, for 6 years and married for the past 2. I'll start with some backstory. My mother-in-law has never been the nicest person to me, but I usually ignored it, especially in the start of our relationship. I was young and naive, and I imagined that mother-in-laws behaved similarly with their sons. When I was 16, I moved out of my family's house and haven't had much contact with them since. So I didn't have any perspective on what a healthy family looked like. I guess the events of the last few weeks have been building up for a while, and now I'm completely lost. I don't know what to do. For reference, when I first met my husband's parents, we were all out to dinner. His mother appeared kind enough at first, but throughout the dinner, she kept making comments that were targeted and underhanded. So, do you have a job of your own, or do you just live off Mark's money? Have you ever considered losing weight? You have such a pretty face. I think you would be stunning if you were a little slimmer. You're a great girl, but I just don't think I could ever find anyone good enough for my baby boy. I understand, I ignored every possible red flag. But, in my defense, I was deeply in love with this guy. She constantly said these things in a nice, humorous tone, and I didn't want to overreact. For the first several years of our relationship, she frequently made small, underhanded comments about my weight, appearance, or the idea that I was dating Mark for his money. The trouble is, we both work in the same field and earn nearly the same amount. While he earns slightly more than I do, it is far from enough to justify gold digging. At first, the things she said bothered me, so I took them up with Mark. He repeatedly told her to quit making comments like that. But, because it was never anything excessive, he dismissed them, stating that because he is her only kid, Mom is a little clingy. We also didn't see his parents very much because we were both busy at work and lived about an hour away. When he proposed to me, things quickly escalated. I won't go into too much detail, but my mother-in-law made our engagement and wedding difficult. When we invited his parents to supper to announce our engagement, his mother broke down when she saw the diamond. She asked Mark how much it cost and flushed bright red when he told her. I understand that it may appear to be a lot to others, but we both work in a lucrative industry and are financially blessed. The price was reasonable for him. Still, she informed him that I didn't deserve such a costly ring and that he had never purchased her anything that expensive, something she thought she deserved as his mother. She also stated that she did not believe he was serious about me after we had been dating for 3 years. Mark urged her not to be crazy and left it at that, but supper was destroyed, and everyone left shortly thereafter. His mother did not speak to him for 3 weeks after that. Later, she sent him an apology, stating she was afraid of losing her little man. During the wedding planning, my mother-in-law attempted to tamper with the guest list and vendors. And yes, she wore a white dress to my wedding. Mark supported me throughout this. We had passwords for all of the vendors, and he had his mom change them. Our first year of marriage was wonderful. We wanted to have a family and started trying for a baby right away. However, everything changed when I became pregnant at the end of last year. We surprised my in-laws at their house with a small gift basket including champagne, chocolate, and a tiny plaque that read Grandma. When they opened it and realized what was going on, my mother-in-law looked at me and said, "You sure it's my baby? Mark's, right?" I was astonished, but she smiled and behaved as if it were a joke, and the evening went on. That's when she started making a lot of comments about my weight. "You've really put on a few pounds, haven't you? Be careful, or your husband's eyes might start to wander." I stayed thin during my whole pregnancy with Mark. "You should really stop being so lazy and put effort into looking good for my baby, Mark." She also mentioned women she knew who had misidentified another man's child as their husband's. It always felt like she was after me. She even joked about how she wished I wouldn't do something like that, implying that I cheated. I despised these statements and constantly requested her not to make them. She would dismiss it, adding, "You take things too seriously, can't you take a joke?" Then she brought up Lauren, 30F, Mark's ex from high school. She would talk about Lauren's skinny and petite figure and how she matched Mark better because they were both athletic. These comments, along with pregnancy hormones, caused me to cry several times. At first, Mark would yell at his mother to stop talking to me in that manner, which only irritated her more. But about the fourth or fifth month, he became distant. He started visiting his mother more frequently without me and would come over on weekends, even when I begged him to remain because I was sick or in agony. Around my fifth month, he stopped kissing me goodbye in the mornings before work, hugging or caressing me at home, and expressing no emotion at all. I was completely confused. But whenever I asked him what was wrong, he became irritated and told me I was acting clingy and annoying, or that he was just tired. He even indicated that I was acting crazy due to my pregnancy hormones. I let it go and tried to concentrate on myself and my kid, but I was sure my mother-in-law was bugging him about it. When my baby was born 1 month ago, my mother-in-law insisted on being present in the delivery room. I didn't want her there. But Mark claimed if I didn't allow her to come, he wouldn't be there for me either. At this point, I was so emotionally and physically weary that I caved in and let her stay. Although my labor was long and complicated, holding my kid was the sweetest moment of my life. I'd do it all again for him. Then, just after they cleaned him up and returned him to me, Mark went to me and said, "I want a paternity test." I was shocked. I assumed it was a prank at first. But he was serious. I was really perplexed and kept asking why. I'd never cheated on anyone or given him cause to believe I had. My job was remote, and he had to go into the office, so I was practically constantly at home. My pregnancy was very challenging, therefore I didn't have the opportunity or time to have an affair. He kept stressing that he wanted to be sure the baby was his and that he didn't want to pay for some other man's child. Hearing him say such things about our baby broke my heart. I consented to take the paternity test because I had nothing to conceal. 3 weeks ago, we received the results. As you might expect based on the headline, the results were negative. I thought there had to be a mistake, but Mark refused to even look at me. He packed his belongings and left for his mother's place, leaving me home alone with a 2-week-old newborn. I called repeatedly, but he didn't answer. I texted him, saying there had to be a mistake and suggesting another test, but he did not respond. He eventually called me 1 week ago. By this point, I was a wreck and all I needed was help with my baby. Instead of offering any comfort, he remarked, "My mother was correct. I can't believe I married a woman like you." That's when everything clicked. What did he mean when he said his mom was right? At that point, I was certain she had told him lies about me having an affair, being immoral, or something equally ridiculous. I decided to phone my mother-in-law yesterday because Mark no longer responded to my messages. When she answered, I told her I needed to speak with Mark and that he couldn't just abandon me with a 1-week-old kid after all of the issues I experienced throughout pregnancy and labor. She smiled and told me he wasn't home, and that I earned what I received. That was it. I was finished. I was done with the entire family by this time. I had my baby to think about, and I was not going to let them walk all over him like they had done to me. I was not going to put up with my mother-in-law's nonsense longer. I replied, "I don't know what you think of me, but I never cheated. The test was wrong." That was the turning point. She laughed again and informed me that she already knew. Then she acknowledged that she had submitted the incorrect sample to ensure that the results were negative, because, in her words, I did not deserve her kid, Mark. She refused to let me baby trap him. She went even further. "He will never believe you or put some woman over his own mother, so just let it go." I was stunned. For a minute, I was unable to answer. Then she went on a big rant about how she always wanted Mark to be with someone good enough for him, someone who matched him in appearance. She mentioned Lauren again, stating how much she missed her and how Mark should recognize that she was the one he was meant to be with. The paternity test was simply a ploy to encourage him to leave me so she could find him a suitable companion. I hung up. Since then, I've been numb. I can't believe a real grown-up would act like this. That gets me to where I am now. I texted Mark right after and told him what she had said. I advised him to ask her himself. "I'm not sure where to proceed from here. Should I have another paternity test? I'm thinking of hiring a lawyer, but I don't want to make things any more complicated. Should I even take him back if he decides he wants to return? Any advice would be greatly appreciated." Update. One quick update for everyone who asked. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who responded and offered suggestions. I honestly didn't anticipate so many people to see this. I went to bed last night after finishing this post and awoke to 900 comments. I read them all, but I won't be able to respond to everyone, so I'll answer a few questions here. As I mentioned in my essay, I am not connected to my family and have not spoken to my parents in years. They did not attend my wedding, and I do not believe they are aware of or concerned about my baby. My family is from Minnesota, but I came to the East Coast after leaving my parents' house. I supported myself through school and college by working various jobs, met Mark in college, and have been working remotely since. I don't have many friends locally, and my family is out of the question. I'll call my coworker Katie, F., who lives close, and we occasionally text. I informed Katie a little about what was going on, and she was kind enough to offer to come over and support me. When she arrived at my place, I was a wreck. I hadn't showered in a week, the house was a mess, and my 2-week-old newborn was wailing in my arms. I burst into tears because I was so relieved to see her. Which was awkward because we weren't even close. But she was incredible. She inquired what was going on, and I couldn't even explain. So I just showed her the original post. Katie has been a sweetheart. She's been minding my son while I clean up, eat some proper food, and take my first hot shower in 2 weeks. She's also been a rock for me right now and is outraged on my behalf. To be honest, it feels great to finally have someone on my side. That's it for now. Several of you inquired about my father-in-law. I never mentioned him because he isn't very talkative. I'm not sure what he thinks of me, but he's always been kind to me and normally overlooks my mother-in-law. I'm also not sure why my mother-in-law dislikes me so much, but it's not because of ethnicity or religion, as some of you have stated. We are all white and not religious. I believe it's because I'm a bit of a big girl and rather tall, but Mark is really fit and enjoys working out at the gym. I'm not big or unhealthy, I exercise regularly, but I'm not as small as my mother-in-law or some of Mark's ex-partners. That is my best guess. Honestly. I'm also planning to contact a lawyer today. At this point, I don't think I'll ever look at Mark in the same way again. I know I want a divorce. I had already screenshotted as many chats as possible, both with my mother-in-law and with Mark, just in case this happened. I'll also acquire another paternity test and give him the results as I serve him with divorce papers. He hasn't responded to my texts yet, and at this point, I do not care. I don't want my son to have a father like him. I'm outraged that he didn't even talk to me before departing me and his son. I don't even want him around anymore. Update number 2. Hello everyone, it's been a pretty hectic couple of months, and I've had numerous comments and private messages requesting an update. So I figured I'd catch everyone up. It's been 2 months since my previous post. Mark returned home about 2 days after I posted my first update. By that point, I had cleaned myself and the house, thanks to Katie, and had contacted with a lawyer about divorce proceedings. Mark arrived early in the morning, looking utterly dreadful. Unshaven. His eyes appeared as if he'd been crying for 3 days. I was not expecting him. We stood there in quiet for a bit before he sobbed and apologized. I know I claimed I didn't want anything to do with him anymore, but seeing him stand in front of me was difficult. I'd loved this man for 6 years, and it was difficult to let go of everything. Hearing him apologize felt wonderful too. I allowed him in, and we sat in the living room while I held my baby. He kept crying. Eventually, he begged to hold his son. The wrath from the previous few days returned, and I said no. He simply nodded and let it go. After gathering his thoughts, he asked if we could talk. I consented because I wanted to know what he had to say. Thank you to a commenter here, I remembered to record the chat on my phone. The truth comes out. He didn't want to believe it when I texted him what his mother had told me, but it continued bothering him. Finally, he chose to confront her. Of course, she denied it, telling him that I was attempting to baby trap him for money and isolate him from his family. However, my father-in-law had had enough of his insane wife at that point, and he told Mark everything. It appears that one of my mother-in-law's nephews worked at the lab where the paternity test was sent. She persuaded him to switch the results. Mark stated that it felt as if his entire universe had fallen in that moment. Because he recognized what a lousy husband and father he had been up to this point. What a manipulative bitch his mother was. To be honest, hearing that made me feel amazing, but it was not the end. The scope of her manipulation. His mother then attempted to defend herself by claiming that I was too large and womanly for her ideal, handsome son. She wanted him to divorce me and reunite with his ex since, in her opinion, she was prettier and more suitable for him. She also despised the fact that he was paying me and our baby too much attention, because it was taking precious time away from her. Things become worse. When he came over to her place during my 4th month, one of the occasions I was unable to go, she invited his ex, Lauren. She convinced Mark that I had been aloof and irritated because I was having an affair and forcing him to raise another man's child. Lauren, who was petite and, admittedly, very attractive, flirted with him at every opportunity. And Mark acknowledged falling for his mother's deception. He began seeing Lauren behind my back. Because he enjoyed feeling wanted, as I struggled with my pregnancy, he was the one having the affair. He stated they never slept together, only dated and kissed and such. As if that makes things better. He claimed he called it off the week before I went into labor due to remorse. Then, after telling me everything, He pleaded for forgiveness. He stated that he will go to any length to resolve the situation. That if it came to it, he would remove his mother from our life for good. And for a brief while, it seemed tempting. I almost gave in. Then I glanced at my son. And I remembered everything he had put me through over the past year. How he never established boundaries with his mother. How he engaged in an affair. How he abandoned me when I was most vulnerable. I informed him that with everything that had happened during my pregnancy and after our son was born, it simply wasn't feasible. I no longer saw him the same way, and I had lost trust in him. He cried some more before agreeing to arrange a motel nearby. I also informed him I wanted to take a true paternity test again. He protested, but I insisted. So the test was scheduled for the very next day, the results and divorce. 2 weeks later, the results were returned. Wouldn't you know it? He's the father? Cue more crying from him. Is it awful that I felt vindicated? Last week, the divorce papers were finally drafted, and I served him. After 2 months of agony, he was a wreck and attempted to recommend couples counseling before making any major decisions. But I was really done with him. I requested a 50-50 asset distribution and primary custody, which my lawyer believes will be readily granted given the facts I have of Mark's behavior toward our baby. Mark will get supervised visits on weekends, and his mother will not be permitted around my child. Mark stated that he will not challenge me on the terms, out of guilt. And honestly, rightly so. Father-in-law steps in. My father-in-law contacted me the day Mark was served to apologize for not stepping in sooner. I forgive him. From what I've heard, he's always been a laid-back man, and Mark has also stated that he is likely to leave his wife. What about my mother-in-law? I don't know anything about her anymore. She's been blocked since the day Mark arrived at my door. Moving forward, I'll be moving out of our flat. While I am heartbroken and overwhelmed by how my marriage ended, I am also hopeful for the future. So that's what's been going on recently. I probably won't update for a bit. It's time to focus on myself and my son. I'd simply like to thank everyone who offered advice and support. I'm quite appreciative. I probably wouldn't have gotten this far without it. Update 3. Wow, I had forgotten about this account. It's been a year since my previous post. I deleted Reddit off my phone and sort of forgot about it. This will be a brief update for those who wish to know. Current situation. My divorce is set to be finalized next month. Mark abruptly decided that he no longer wanted to give me majority custody or supervised visits, so the proceedings took a while. But my attorney was a beast. With the tapes I have of his admission regarding his behavior throughout and after my pregnancy, I have a good chance of getting what I want. My baby is now 14 months old and the loveliest little boy. We moved across the state to a charming little apartment. Thanks to my job, I can spend most of my time with him. I've also begun going out more and joined a book club, so I've definitely met some new people here. The divorce, relocation, and attempting to raise my son on my own have all been difficult. But, really? I feel so much better without Mark and his witch of a mother ruining my life. I should have recognized the warning signs from the start, when this man repeatedly prioritized his mother before his own pregnant wife. But you live and learn. And I will not make that mistake again. What's next? I'm not sure if I'm ready for a relationship again. But, for the time being, all I want to do is be as present as possible with my son. I don't think I'll be updating again, but I'd like to add that I'm in a much better place than I was last year. And I thank everyone who has wished me well. Now, on to the next story, Story 4. After 15 years of dedication, I resigned, causing chaos in the company and financial trouble because my father favored my younger brother over me. Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let us keep this channel growing together. Thank you very much. Now, let's begin the video. Hello Reddit, long-time lurker and first-time poster. I had to get this off my chest before I lost my sanity. If you don't want to read my son's tale, you can find the TLDR at the bottom. So, I'm a 34-year-old male who has been working for my father's plumbing firm, Taylor & Sons Plumbing, for 15 years. The son section is supposed to be about me and my younger brother Matt, 31M, but it's more like Taylor and his favorite son. And the other one who does all of the work. My father founded this company around 30 years ago, a classic small business story. We started with just him in a van and now have 15 plumbers, 3 office workers, and are one of the larger plumbing companies in our community. And I'm not being arrogant when I suggest that most of that growth occurred after I joined. After high school, I attended college to study business management for 4 years, earning an official degree. Meanwhile, my brother Matt barely graduated high school and required 6 years to complete a 2-year degree at a community college. While I was studying, he was uploading gym selfies and making his way around the local bar scene. After graduation, I returned home to work for my family's business. Dad emphasized the need of learning from the ground up, so I spent 3 years as a plumber's assistant, unclogging toilets, crawling beneath houses, and dealing with others' physical. Fine, whatever. I got it. Can't manage plumbers if you don't know what they do. I worked my way up, obtained my master plumber's license, which is a massive pain in the ass, BTW, and learned scheduling, inventory, and all of the boring but essential stuff that keeps a business running. I worked 60-hour weeks for years, missed my friends' weddings due to emergency calls, and did not date for around 5 years. Who has time? Then I finally made it. I became operations manager about 5 years ago. I began implementing all of the systems I had been planning. Digital scheduling, better inventory management, follow-up calls following jobs. Our reviews went from 3.5 to 4.8 stars. Revenue increased by 40% in 2 years. Dad genuinely appeared impressed for once. Then Matt shows up. Enter Matt. Until now, my brother had been bouncing between bartending and finding himself. Suddenly, he decides he wants to join the family business. Keep in mind that this guy has never exhibited any interest in plumbing. I can't tell the difference between PVC and copper pipe. I think a P-trap is something you use to catch animals. But Dad? Dad is absolutely thrilled. His golden boy has finally joined the family legacy, and this is where everything goes to hell. Dad offers Matt a made-up title like Director of Client Relations, and a salary that is 80% of mine, despite the fact that I've been there a decade longer. Matt is assigned an office with a window. Meanwhile, I am still in the converted closet adjacent to the restroom. What's his job? Taking clients to lunch. We're posting on our social media. Occasionally showing up at project sites to photograph our plumbers working, always making sure to include himself in the shot, as if he's overseeing. He arrives around 10 a.m., has 2-hour lunch breaks, and departs at 4 p.m., due to traffic. Every staff meeting, Dad compliments Matt on bringing in some minor contract while completely disregarding the fact that I recently optimized our whole billing system and saved us $50,000 per year. It's as if I'm invisible. There was one instance when I spent weeks putting together a bid for this massive commercial project, the largest contract we'd ever pursued. I'm talking about binder-thick proposals. I even pulled an all-nighter to finish it. On the day of the meeting, Dad brings Matt along. Matt had not read a single page of the proposal. Matt, who was hungover, kept racing to the bathroom. Matt, who described the client's building as that big place with the sign, throughout the meeting. We received the deal anyway since my figures were good. On the drive back, Dad couldn't stop gushing about Matt's connection with their team and how his people skills sealed the deal. My contribution? Dad commented that my attention to detail was beneficial. Helpful. As if I were the freaking office assistant. Moms know better. When I try to talk to her about it, she gives me a sad expression and says things like, "You and your brother are just different kinds of people. Not everyone can be as organized as you are." As if competence were a character fault. The final straw. One day, I overheard Dad speaking with Matt in his office. The door wasn't completely closed. Dad was talking about succession planning. When you take over the company, and asked Matt if he wanted to learn about the finances. My name did not come up. Not even once, not even, maybe your brother can help you with the accounting, or something. The company I helped establish. The company I've dedicated my entire adult life to. And I am not even considered a prospective future owner. Just the workhorse who keeps things going while Matt takes the spotlight. Keeping my head down. I kept my head down and finished the work. It was not like I could do something about it. Then, around 9 months ago, our administrative assistant quit. She had been with us for 5 years but received a better offer elsewhere. Dad said we needed to hire someone with more office management experience because we were expanding. Enter Julie, 29 Fahrenheit. Something resonated with me the moment she walked through the door for her interview. She walked with confidence, her dark hair was always in a perfect bun, and her emerald eyes seemed to see right through all the bogus corporate BS. She wasn't one of Matt's typical Instagram model types, but she was stunning in a refined, put-together sense. Her resume? Impressive as hell. Business degree. Experience managing offices for firms far larger than ours. There are numerous accounting software and business operations certifications available. Dad was so thrilled that he hired her on the spot. Something he never does. Julie changes everything. How about her first week? She thoroughly restructured our filing system, which hadn't been updated since the 1990s. Is this her second week? She discovered $20,000 in unpaid invoices from the previous year and collected it. Is this her third week? She confronted my father about our antiquated scheduling system and persuaded him to invest in the software I had been yearning for years. I was essentially in love. We started having lunch together in the break room. We initially discussed only work-related topics. Then we realized we both enjoyed the same true crime podcasts. Then I discovered she enjoys hiking, which I do as well. Then there were movies, novels, and all that. It was so simple to chat to her, unlike those awful Tinder dates where you're trying to think of anything to say. Asking her out after a few months of the lunch thing, I finally got the nerve to ask her out. For real. Dinner on Friday night at that new Thai restaurant downtown. Not the break room, with our sad Tupperware meals. She agreed right away, smiling in a way that made me feel like I wasn't simply the family doormat. We scheduled it for the following Friday. I was ridiculously excited. I even caught myself whistling while fixing a sink on one job site, which completely confused the apprentice working with me. I did not inform anyone at work about our date arrangements. My family has a specific gift for spoiling anything nice that occurs to me, so I decided to remain silent until things got serious. A big mistake. The gut punch. 2 days before our date, I was returning from work when I heard Julie giggling in the hallway. That genuine chuckle was something I had worked hard for weeks to obtain. But she was not laughing at what I said. She was chuckling about something Matt said. As I approached the corner, I noticed them standing far too close together at the coffee machine. Matt was performing his famous lean against the wall, "Look how cool I am" posture. He was showing her something on his phone, and she was genuinely interested in whatever rubbish he was spewing. "Hey, Ryan," Matt said as he noticed me, using that false brotherly tone he saves for when other people are present. "Just showing Julie those kayaking pics from last weekend." Kayaking? Matthew. The guy who complains about having to walk from his automobile to a restaurant while it's raining. The guy who once asked me if the river near our house included those fish things. Since when does he frickin' kayak? Julie smiled at me, but it was not the same grin. It was simply polite, professional. The kind you give to a coworker, not the person you're about to go on a date with. My stomach sank. "They're amazing photos," Julie replied, returning her gaze to Matt. "I've always wanted to try kayaking but never had the chance." "You should come with me sometime," Matt added, flashing that idiotic smile that always works on ladies. "I go most weekends when the weather's good. Very peaceful out on the water." Let me tell you, this guy has never kayaked in his life. The closest he's been to a water sport is drinking beer on someone else's boat. But suddenly, Mr. Outdoorsy appeared. "That would be fantastic," Julie stated. And she really meant it. I could tell. She turned to face me. "Ryan, I didn't know your brother was so into outdoor activities." "Neither did I mumbled. But they were quickly back to scanning through his phone, which I'm sure featured stock shots of boats or images he found online. The next day, Julie found me alone in the break room. My heart skipped a beat as I wondered if the Matt encounter was all for nothing. "About Friday," she said. And I knew exactly what was coming. "I'm really sorry, but I need to reschedule. Something came up." Something came up is the worldwide code for "I found a better offer." And in this case? My brother undoubtedly made the superior deal. "No problem," I replied, attempting to sound nonchalant. "Maybe another time." "Definitely," she said. With a smile. A smile that did not reach her eyes. A smile that conveys, "This is never happening." Sure enough, I found out later through an office rumor that Julie and Matt had their first date on Friday, the same day she was supposed to go out with me. At the Thai restaurant where I had planned to take her. The next week was torture. Matt strutted around the office, as if he had won the lottery. Julie flushed every time he passed past her desk. When I entered the room, the whispered talks halted. Matt casually mentioned their date during the staff meeting. I felt like garbage. Every time I try to construct something for myself, Matt swoops in and takes over as if it was never mine in the first place. And of course, things got worse. Matt tells Mom everything, so she knew about it right away. She called over the weekend, all thrilled. "Have you met this Julie that Matthew is seeing? He says she's just wonderful, so accomplished and pretty. She works at your office." "She's our office manager," I replied bluntly. "Well, isn't that nice? Matthew says she's very smart. Organized too. Sounds like she and Matthew have so much in common. They share nothing in common. Except for maybe living on the same planet. But sure, Mom. They are soulmates. Finally, I snapped. Actually, Mom, Julie and I were supposed to go out first. I asked her out, and she said yes. But then Matt swooped in. There was a prolonged pause. I could almost hear Mom trying to assimilate this information in a way that would not make her beloved Matthew appear terrible. Well, sweetie, you know how these things go. Sometimes people just connect. Matthew has always been so charming with the ladies. You're more, well, focused on work. Seriously. Not everyone appreciates that like they should. She basically said, Matt's hot and fun. You're boring. Deal with it. The new power couple. And that's how it began. Matt and Julie, Taylor and Sons Plumbing's new power couple. However, the saddest aspect was not even losing Julie. It was seeing her gradually comprehend who Matt truly was, and pretending not to notice it. The cracks begin to show. He canceled arrangements with her for the first time because his friends invited him to a last-minute poker game. The day she overheard him exaggerating, or outright lying, about his function in the company to a client. She once had to cover for him when he was due to attend a networking event but was too inebriated to show up. I could see the perplexity on her face. The mental gymnastics as she attempted to reconcile the Matt she thought she was dating with the real Matt. However, by that time, they had become official. And she was in too deep. My family circles the wagons. Mom invited Julie to Sunday supper 3 weeks after they began dating. It'll be nice to have a fresh face, she exclaimed. As if our monthly family dinners weren't already agonizing enough, especially since my work infatuation had picked my brother over me. I almost skipped dinner. But Dad made it clear that it was not optional. Family dinner is family dinner, Ryan. Be there. The dinner from hell, so I went. And it was just the nightmare you'd imagine. Mom went all out, using her best china and preparing a sumptuous roast. Dad told work stories that made Matt sound like a business prodigy. Matt performed his ideal son-boyfriend routine, pulling Julie's chair out, refilling her water glass, telling utterly fabricated stories about his wild weekends and charitable work. Julie ate it all up, laughing at Matt's jokes, questioning him about his fictitious hiking expeditions. While I sat there, knowing that Matt's closest experience with outdoor adventure is when he had to park at the far end of the mall parking lot, I attempted to join the conversation. I described the hiking trail Julie and I had discussed over our break room lunches, just to let him know what he ruined. Oh, Matt was just telling me about that place, Julie cried, turning to him with excitement. You've been there too? Been there, Matt asked, laughing. I practically live on that trail in the summer. Sure. He is suddenly Bear Grylls. The promotion I deserved at supper happened 6 months ago. They have been formally dating ever since. Anyway, I focused on myself and tried to adjust, praying that things would improve for me. I persuaded myself I didn't really care about what slipped through my fingers. I knew fantastic things would happen. About a month after that dinner, I was ultimately promoted to senior operations manager. After 15 years of killing myself for this company, this was meant to be a big deal. Increased responsibility, better pay. Most importantly, the company's car. Nothing fancy, just a new Ford F-250 with ample towing capacity for transporting equipment to job sites. The announcement that almost was worth it. Dad made a major announcement during our monthly staff meeting. After years of dedicated service, Ryan is being promoted to senior operations manager. This comes with a nice raise and the new company truck we just purchased. Well deserved, son. For once, I felt as if my effort was being recognized. I even allowed myself to get enthusiastic about having a great vehicle for the first time in my life. Instead of my rusted-out Chevy, which is held together with duct tape and prayers. And then came Sunday dinner. Fast forward to Sunday dinner. Mom's preparing her renowned pot roast. Dad's talking about a client. Matt has his arm around Julie, as usual. I'm just hoping to get through the lunch without saying anything I'll regret. Then Dad clears his throat and sets down his fork. I've got an announcement to make, says the man. I immediately tighten up. Because in my family, announcements are never good news. Matt and Julie share this glance, and I know what's next. The bombshell. We're engaged, Julie announces, holding out her left hand. With this huge diamond ring, which likely cost more than my annual income. Mom breaks into joyous tears. Dad begins clapping Matt on the back. I'm sitting there in shock. The fork had frozen halfway to my mouth. This is wonderful news, Dad exclaims. My boy's finally settling down, starting a family. Then he drops the actual bomb. The ultimate betrayal. Matt, I think you and your future bride could use that new truck more than the company could. Consider it an engagement present. You'll need a good family vehicle now. Matt makes a phony astonished face, as if this hadn't been his goal all along. Wow, Dad, that's so generous. I've finally discovered my voice. Dad, that truck is supposed to be part of my promotion package. I need it for work. For actual company business. Dad waved his hand dismissively. Now, Ryan, don't be selfish. Your brother's starting a family. Family comes first. You can keep using your old truck for now. It still runs, doesn't it? Barely, I said. But no one was listening. They were all busy praising the happy couple, discussing wedding plans and future grandchildren. The final straw. That was it? The last straw? The moment I realized I was done with this family business garbage forever. Rage was building up. I was fuming. But nevertheless, I was able to drive home in my piece of junk truck. That decided to create a worrisome rattling noise the entire journey, simply to emphasize the fact that it was on its last legs. Perfect timing. 15 years down the drain, I arrived home. And totally lost it. 15 years. 15 years of dedication, hard work, and sacrifice. 15 years of seeing Matt glide through life on charm and Dad's affection while I developed something worthwhile. Something profitable. Something that was reportedly just turned over, again, to my brother. And now Julie. The only wonderful thing that had happened to me in years was presented to Matt on a silver platter. Complete with an engagement ring and a company truck. I don't think I've ever been so angry in my life. It wasn't even hot or explosive. It was this cold, controlled wrath that suddenly made everything crystal apparent. I was never going to be valued by this family. I was never going to receive what I deserved. I was merely the workhorse, the dependable one they could dump on while Golden Boy received all the glory. The email that changed everything. I grabbed my laptop and checked my email. I looked at the blank compose window for around 10 seconds. Then I started typing. Subject, my resignation. Dad, I am quitting from Taylor & Sons Plumbing, effective immediately. Consider this my 2-week notice, though realistically, you'll be lucky if I make it through the week. I plan to pursue other options. Sincerely, not really, Ryan Taylor. I pushed send before I could back out. Then I sent a separate email to our HR person, who is essentially the bookkeeper who handles payroll, about my accumulated vacation time. I advised them that I would start taking it immediately. I had no intention of returning to the office. The fallout begins. Within minutes, my phone began to blow up. Dad is phoning. Matt texted only WTF, and stupid emoticons. Mom left sobbing voicemails about how I was tearing the family apart and being overly dramatic. Then Julie called. I let that call go to voicemail. Ryan, it's Julie. Your dad told me you quit. What's going on? Please call me back. As if she didn't know. As if she hadn't been a part of the entire disaster. I disregarded them all. I turned off the phone and began updating my resume. I was finished. I'm done being the family's workhorse. I'm tired of watching Matt get everything he wants while I labor myself to death for scraps of attention. The confrontation dad arrived at my apartment the next morning at 7 a.m. He pounded on the door, as if he were attempting to break it down. What the hell, Ryan? He yelled when I finally opened it, still in my pajamas and unprepared for this showdown. Quitting over email? After everything this family has done for you? I honestly laughed at his face. Done for me? You mean like paying me less than the market wage for 15 years while Matt receives bonuses simply for showing up to work? Or how about offering me a business vehicle as part of my promotion and then giving it to Matt as an engagement present? The excuses? That's different, Dad said, his face flushing. Matt's starting a family. He needs our support. And I don't? I've been supporting this entire family for years. Who do you think keeps the business going while Matt is away enjoying 2-hour lunches and posting on Instagram? Dad's face became even redder. Do not talk about your brother in that way. Matt brings in clients, he is the company's face. And I am what? What about the workhorse? The sucker who actually performs the work while Matt takes all the credit? I am done, Dad. Let Matt manage your business. You don't need me, anyway. The final goodbye. I started to close the door, but Dad's foot got in the way. Classic. You walk away from this company, you walk away from this family, he told me. It was all very dramatic, as if we were watching a horrible television program. I looked him dead in the eyes. If this is how family treats each other, maybe it's for the best, I replied, pushing the door so firmly that Dad had to shift his foot. He pounded and yelled for a bit before giving up and leaving. The aftermath begins. The next day, Matt arrived. I didn't even open the door, but yelled through it that he needed to go before I called the cops. He attempted the "come on, bro, don't be like that" thing, but I wasn't buying it. Mom called repeatedly, crying about how I was breaking your father's heart and tearing the family apart. As if I were the problem here. As if the 15 years of favoritism and disdain were my fault. But, you know what? I've never felt more free in my life. A new beginning. The job search was shockingly easy. That first week, I got 3 interviews, all with larger and more professional organizations than my father's. Both of them made offers. I accepted the position with Wilson Plumbing and Heating, a competitor across town. They're tiny but developing quickly, and the owner, Dave Wilson, values experience and hard effort. Isn't this a novel concept? What is the best part? They offered me a partnership track, in writing. After 2 years, I'll have the chance to buy in and become a part owner. Despite 15 years of service, my father never considered gifting me this. Oh, and they gave me a business truck. A brand new Ford F-350 Super Duty. Better than what Dad took from me. Fully loaded, with the firm logo on the side and everything. During my first week, I made sure to drive past my parents' house. Petty? Yeah. Satisfying? Of course. Watching Taylor & Sons fall apart, meanwhile, the Taylor & Sons enterprise crumbled without me. I've been receiving texts from some of the plumbers, who were truly nice guys, and their stories are better than any revenge fantasy I could have imagined. Week 1. Dad attempts to take over. Dad tried to handle operations on his own while I was gone. He hasn't done the job in 15 years. He had no idea how my scheduling system operated. He ended up scheduling 3 distinct crews on the same day. Then there was no one available for an emergency call at the hospital. That's a large account that I've personally managed for years. They were not pleased. Week 2, Matt gets promoted. Dad delegated responsibility for operations to Matt since he was in over his head. Matthew. He can't even remember to arrange his own dental appointments. Predictably, it was a complete disaster. According to my friend Steve, one of the senior plumbers, Matt arrived late every day. He spent most of his time on the phone with Julie or his friends. Couldn't answer simple job-specific questions. They lost one of our second largest commercial contracts entirely because Matt failed to submit the renewal papers. The account was worth $50,000 each year. Gone. Matt was too busy posting gym selfies or whatever it is he does all day. The dominoes keep falling. The scheduling is so disorganized that they have had to call clients the night before to reschedule. This is infuriating everyone. Their online ratings have plummeted from 4.8 to 3.2 stars in only 3 weeks. Dad is blaming the new system. My system. Not the fools attempting to run it. The office chaos. One of the office employees resigned because Matt continued to blame her for his failures. Accounts receivable are stacking up because no one is invoicing on time. That was another thing I managed that no one seemed to know about. But I didn't expect. Did Dad have to take out a short-term loan to cover payroll? Because their cash flow is all messed up. 3 weeks ago, the business was solidly profitable, is currently struggling to stay afloat. And Julie? Apparently, she stays up late every night to keep things functioning. But she is an office manager, not an operations professional. She can arrange files and answer phones all day, but she knows nothing about schedule plumbing jobs. Managing a group of 15 plumbers. Handling various talents and certifications. She didn't realize what she was getting into with my family. Have you made your bed? Lie in it. The Taylor family breaks apart. Mom has been messaging me nonstop, increasingly desperate messages. Your father's working 16-hour days trying to sort out the schedule. Matt's really trying, but he doesn't understand your system. We had to tell 3 clients we can't get to them this week. Notice that none of these messages contain an actual apology. Or an admission that they messed up. Classic Taylor family. Dad's breaking point. Dad left me only one message, slurring his words as if he had been drinking. This business was okay prior to your sophisticated systems, and it will be fine afterwards. You think you're irreplaceable? No one is. Yes, Dad. Keep reminding yourself of this, while your business rings the drain. Matt's panic mode. Matt's messages have progressed from phony brotherly concern, hey bro, everyone's worried about you. A barely veiled panic. Do you still have the login for the scheduling software? Dad can't find it. To outright desperation. Seriously dude, just tell me how you handled the Henderson specs, their project manager is freaking out. Julie's half-hearted attempt. Am I the only one who hasn't reached out much? Julie, she sent one email to my personal account about a week after my departure. It was lengthy and full of apologies about how she never meant to hurt me, and how things with Matt just happened. And, of course, she hoped we might remain friends. Finally, almost as an afterthought. If you have time, could you possibly write up how you handled the scheduling? We're having some issues. I removed it without replying. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Oh, and the truck? Apparently, it's creating an odd sound. Matt had the audacity to ask if I could look at it, according to his most recent text message. The truck that should have been mine. The truck was part of my promotion but was given to him as an engagement present. I laughed out and then deleted it without answering. Not my truck, not my problem. A new life at Wilson. Meanwhile, I've been at Wilson for 2 weeks now, and it feels like I've entered a parallel dimension where competence is truly respected. Dave asks for my thoughts on operations. My ideas are executed rather than disregarded. The employees appreciate me for my experience, not because I am the boss's son. Yesterday I fully revamped their service call routing system. Dave was so amazed that he offered me a bonus on the spot. A bonus? For executing my job well. What a concept. And then I met Kate. About a week after starting my new job, I met someone. Kate. She's an architect I met on the job site while we were working on the plumbing for a new office building. Smart. Funny. Director. Not playing any games. Kate is nothing like Julie. Kate is real, whereas Julie was always polished and proper. She comes up to dates wearing jeans and boots. She can talk athletics as readily as she talks design. And calls me out on my nonsense in the most refreshing way. She doesn't engage in games. She doesn't say what I want to hear. Kate delivers exactly what she promises. Our third date. For our third date, after 15 years of dedication, I resigned, causing chaos in the company and financial trouble because my father favored my younger brother over me. Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let us keep this channel growing together. Thank you very much. Now, let's begin the video. Hello Reddit, long-time lurker and first-time poster. I had to get this off my chest before I lost my sanity. If you don't want to read my son's tale, you can find the TLDR at the bottom. So, I'm a 34-year-old male who has been working for my father's plumbing firm, Taylor & Sons Plumbing, for 15 years. The son section is supposed to be about me and my younger brother Matt, 31M, but it's more like Taylor and his favorite son. And the other one who does all of the work. My father founded this company around 30 years ago, a classic small business story. We started with just him in a van and now have 15 plumbers, 3 office workers, and are one of the larger plumbing companies in our community. And I'm not being arrogant when I suggest that most of that growth occurred after I joined. After high school, I attended college to study business management for 4 years, earning an official degree. Meanwhile, my brother Matt barely graduated high school and required 6 years to complete a 2-year degree at a community college. While I was studying, he was uploading gym selfies and making his way around the local bar scene. After graduation, I returned home to work for my family's business. Dad emphasized the need of learning from the ground up, so I spent 3 years as a plumber's assistant, unclogging toilets, crawling beneath houses, and dealing with others' physical. Fine, whatever. I got it. Can't manage plumbers if you don't know what they do. I worked my way up, obtained my master plumber's license, which is a massive pain in the ass, BTW, and learned scheduling, inventory, and all of the boring but essential stuff that keeps a business running. I worked 60-hour weeks for years, missed my friends' weddings due to emergency calls, and did not date for around 5 years. Who has time? Then I finally made it. I became operations manager about 5 years ago. I began implementing all of the systems I had been planning. Digital scheduling, better inventory management. Follow-up calls following jobs. Our reviews went from 3.5 to 4.8 stars. Revenue increased by 40% in 2 years. Dad genuinely appeared impressed for once. Then Matt shows up. Enter Matt. Until now, my brother had been bouncing between bartending and finding himself. Suddenly, he decides he wants to join the family business. Keep in mind that this guy has never exhibited any interest in plumbing. I can't tell the difference between PVC and copper pipe. I think a P-trap is something you use to catch animals. But Dad? Dad is absolutely thrilled. His golden boy has finally joined the family legacy, and this is where everything goes to hell. Dad offers Matt a made-up title like Director of Client Relations, and a salary that is 80% of mine, despite the fact that I've been there a decade longer. Matt is assigned an office with a window. Meanwhile, I am still in the converted closet adjacent to the restroom. What's his job? Taking clients to lunch. We're posting on our social media. Occasionally showing up at project sites to photograph our plumbers working, always making sure to include himself in the shot, as if he's overseeing. He arrives around 10 a.m., has 2-hour lunch breaks, and departs at 4 p.m., due to traffic. Every staff meeting, Dad compliments Matt on bringing in some minor contract while completely disregarding the fact that I recently optimized our whole billing system and saved us $50,000 per year. It's as if I'm invisible. There was one instance when I spent weeks putting together a bid for this massive commercial project, the largest contract we'd ever pursued. I'm talking about binder-thick proposals. I even pulled an all-nighter to finish it. On the day of the meeting, Dad brings Matt along. Matt had not read a single page of the proposal. Matt, who was hungover, kept racing to the bathroom. Matt, who described the client's building as that big place with the sign, throughout the meeting? We received the deal anyway since my figures were good. On the drive back, Dad couldn't stop gushing about Matt's connection with their team and how his people skills sealed the deal. My contribution? Dad commented that my attention to detail was beneficial. Helpful. As if I were the freaking office assistant. Moms know better when I try to talk to her about it. She gives me a sad expression and says things like, "You and your brother are just different kinds of people." Now to the next story 5. My mom sold my stuff and pawned my laptop. I called the cops, had her arrested, and filed a restraining order. Christmas dinner was almost finished when my father put down his fork, looked me directly in the eye, and said, "You are a burden and you can no longer live with us." At first, I assumed I had misheard him. My mother let out a strange, nervous laugh, as if she wasn't convinced he was serious. But then he simply sat there, staring at me, waiting for a reaction. The room went silent. My younger sister Lily froze with her fork halfway into her mouth. She glanced at me with wide eyes, as if she couldn't believe what she'd just heard. I swallowed the slice of ham I was chewing and set my fork down. "What?" "You heard me," he stated. "You've overstayed your welcome. You need to move out." The reality check. I just sat there, trying to process. I was 23. I had a regular career and could have left long ago, but I stayed because they needed me. I paid the energy bill, internet, and groceries most weeks, which they couldn't afford because my father had been unemployed for years and my mother only worked part-time. I was not a burden. I was the reason the lights remained on in that house. And now, out of nowhere, I'm being tossed out like a useless freeloader. Mom has finally spoken up. "Maybe we should talk about this later." "No," Dad interrupted. "This is my house, I make the rules, and I say he's done here." Lily's fear. Lily set down her fork. She was barely 16, and I could tell she was afraid. She looked at our parents as if she didn't recognize them. What did it mean for her that they could throw me out so easily? I took a deep breath. I wasn't about to argue or plead. What if they wanted me out? Fine. But they were not prepared for what that really meant. I slumped back in my chair. "All right," I said. Dad sat up straighter, as if he had won an imaginary fight. Mom still looked uneasy, but she said nothing. Perhaps she was in shock. Perhaps she didn't care as much as I imagined she would. I stood up, grabbed my plate, and took it to the sink. I didn't want to give them the reaction they expected. Instead, I gazed at Lily, who remained tight and uncertain. I gave her a slight nod. She was the only one at the table that I still cared about. Dad sipped his drink, as if nothing had happened. Mom returned to picking at her mashed potatoes. Lily continued looking at me, as if she wanted to say something, but didn't. I did not remain to complete dinner. I just walked out. The silent goodbye. That night, I walked directly to my room, closed the door, and began packing. I wasn't going to waste time figuring out why they were doing this. If they wanted me gone, I was gone. However, this meant they would lose all I had paid for. And I wasn't about to warn them. I packed quietly, but I could hear them talking below. Mom's voice sounded low and terrified. Dad's tone sounded forceful, as if he were attempting to persuade her of anything. I caught bits and pieces. "He's old enough. We can handle it. He should have moved out years ago." An hour later, Lily knocked at my door. I opened it, and she slipped inside, closing it behind her. She appeared distressed, her eyes red as if she had been sobbing. "What the hell was that?" she said. "I don't know," I replied, tucking my laptop into my bag. "But I'm leaving tomorrow." She shakes her head. "That's crazy. You pay for everything? They can't even afford food without you." Not my problem anymore. Lily bit her lip, clearly attempting to keep back more tears. Where are you going? I'll figure it out. The fact was that I had some money saved up, but I had not intended on moving out so soon. I'd have to locate a place quickly, perhaps staying at a friend's for a while. But I wasn't concerned. I would be all right. They would not. Lily paused. Can I? She stopped herself. I knew what she'd ask. She wanted to join me. But she was still in high school, and as much as I disliked leaving her behind, I couldn't bring her with me. You know they'd never let that happen, you said. She stared down at the floor. Yeah. I finished packing while she stood there, as if she didn't want to go. Finally, she sighed. You're going to regret this. I grinned. I know. The next morning, I left before they even awoke. I hauled my bags downstairs, loaded my car, and took one last glance around the house. There's no sadness. No regrets. Just relief. Then, as I was driving out of the driveway, I entered my banking app and erased my name off all bills. Electric, internet, water. Even the Netflix account I had paid for each of them. Without me, everything would shut down within a month. I grinned, put my car into drive, and drove away without looking back. For the next few days, I stayed at my friend Jake's apartment while looking for a place of my own. His sofa sucked. His dog, Max, would not stop looking at me while I tried to sleep. His roommate repeatedly asked, "Are you staying forever?" But none of this mattered. Because I was free. No more paying for a house that I didn't want to live in. No longer pretending to appreciate a man who threw me out of Christmas dinner. No more being regarded as a walking ATM. I was finally doing something for myself. 3 days after I left, my phone started ringing. Initially, I ignored it. 7 missed calls from my mother. My father called me twice, which surprised me because he seldom did. Lily sent a handful of SMS. I also ignored those. Until she sent it. They're freaking out, the power's been cut off. I grinned. They honestly believed that the bills would magically pay themselves. Then, another text. Dad's losing his mind. He said you did something to the house. Oh, this was getting better. I could just imagine Dad stomping about in the dark, cursing at my mother while she cried over the Wi-Fi being down. An hour later, my phone called again. This time, I responded. The moment I took up the phone, my mother's voice hit me like a hurricane. Kevin, we don't know what happened. The power's out. The internet's down. The water bill. You didn't pay, I replied simply. Silence. Then, in a hushed voice. You paid for these? I nearly laughed. Are you serious? Who else did you think was paying for them? She paused. Your father said. She interrupted herself. I already knew. My father was too proud to acknowledge he didn't know how things worked. He presumably assured her that everything would be all right. That the house would function flawlessly even without me. Not my problem anymore, I said. Kevin, please, we didn't mean. I hung up. Not my problem anymore. I assumed that was the end of it. They would figure it out. Perhaps my father will finally get off his ass and get a job. Perhaps my mother would work more hours. Perhaps they will sell something to keep the lights on. Either way, it's not my concern. The next morning, I awoke to a message from my bank. Fraud alert. A suspicious login attempt was detected. I sat up fast, my heart racing. I checked my email. 3 additional alerts. Someone had attempted to enter my account. And I already recognized who it was. I quickly logged in and went over my purchases. Nothing had been taken yet. But there it was. An attempt to reset a password. Another failed login. Then a third. I clenched my jaw. My father must have been quite desperate, calling Lily. I phoned Lily, she responded right away. I was just about to call you, she said quietly. Dad's freaking out. He keeps yelling about money. He was on the computer all morning. I breathed sharply. Trying to get into my bank account. She was silent for a second before cursing beneath her breath. Does he have my old passwords? I inquired. Probably, she confessed. You know how Mom used to keep them in that little notebook by the computer. I knew it. My father must have gone through that, figuring I'd be stupid enough to continue using the same passwords from high school. Kevin, Lily whispered. Her voice shook. He's really pissed. I think. She paused. I heard shouts in the background. My father's booming voice, the banging of doors, and my mother crying. I think he's going to do something stupid. Lily's words sent shivers down my spine. What do you mean? What did he say? I inquired, squeezing my phone more tightly. She lowered her voice. He's saying you ruined us. That you did this on purpose to screw him over. He's talking about calling the cops. I nearly laughed. For what? Not paying his bills? I don't know, she hissed. He's losing it. Mom's crying, saying she'll talk to you, but he won't listen. He keeps saying, he's not gonna get away with this. Kevin, I think he wants to go after you. That took the smile off my face. I had expected my father to get desperate. To beg. Perhaps even try to guilt trip me. But to believe he would gain revenge on me? That was a new level of foolishness. Locking down everything. Lock your door, I instructed her. If he does something crazy, call me. I hung up and quickly changed all of my passwords. Bank accounts, email, streaming services, even my Amazon login. Then I called my bank to report the hacking attempt. They had locked my account so tightly that I even had difficulty logging in for a few hours. I assumed that was the end of it. I was completely mistaken. That night, Jake and I were hanging out in his apartment, playing some ridiculous Xbox game. Then, bang! Someone slammed the door. Hard. Jake paused the game. Are you expecting someone? I was not. I already got a horrible feeling. I got up, walked to the peephole, and my stomach dropped. It was my father. He was standing in the corridor, hands clenched and breathing like a bull prepared to charge. Jake asked, "Who is it?" I stepped back from the door. My dad. Jake stood up. Dude, what's going on? Bang! Kevin, open the door. I did not move. Bang. This time, it's harder. I know you're in there. You think you can just walk away from this? Jake scowled at me. Dude, should we? Before he finished, my father kicked the door in. Calling 911. That was it. I grabbed my phone and called 911. My dad just showed up at my apartment, I told the dispatcher. He's banging on the door, yelling at me, and he just tried to kick it in. Jake stepped back. Kevin, this is crazy. I met his gaze. Yeah, I know. I held the phone to my ear while my father continued yelling, You ungrateful little. You think you can just walk away? You owe us? You? Sir, officers are on their way. The dispatcher stated. 2 minutes later, I heard sirens. Then my father's voice went silent. A knock at the door. Police, open up. I opened the door just in time to see 2 officers handcuff my father. His face was hot and his chest heaved, but as he noticed me standing there, his expression altered. There were no regrets. There is no humiliation. Just pure hatred. You did this, he muttered as he was dragged away. I simply stood there, unaffected. Because the reality was, he did this to himself. They took my father away that night, but I knew things weren't finished. An hour later, Lily called. Mom's losing it, she explained. She's crying and saying it's all your fault. Yeah, that sounds about right. She keeps saying you have to fix this. She's already calling people, trying to get bail money. I nearly laughed. With what money? Silence. Because we knew they didn't have any. No electricity. There's no internet. No savings. And now there is no father figure to yell at everyone while trying to be in charge. Without me, they were sinking quickly. I should have felt bad. But I only felt relief. Keep an eye on her, I advised Lily. If she does anything crazy, call me. Lily texted me the next morning. Mom's selling your stuff. I froze. Then I called her. She picked up immediately, her voice harsh. I told you to fix this? Are you selling my stuff? A pause. Then, bluntly, we need money, Kevin. I clenched my jaw. So you're stealing from me? You don't live here anymore, she yelled. You left all this behind. It's in our house, that makes it ours. She felt no regret. There is no guilt. It's just entitlement. I'm calling the cops. Don't you dare. I hung up. Then I phoned the cops. 2 hours later, I received a call back. We talked to your mother, the officer stated. She wasn't happy, but she's agreed to hold your things until you can pick them up. I messaged Lily. I'm coming over. But I should have realized they were not prepared, because when I arrived at the house, something made my stomach plummet. My automobile, sitting on the driveway. It should not have been there, I had left it at Jake's flat. I turned off the engine, my heart thumping. My car wasn't simply here. It had been driven. The front seat was folded back, as if someone had sat in it. The glove compartment was open, and, worst of all, the gas tank was nearly empty. I clenched my fist. They'd stolen my car. The confrontation before I could exit, the front door swung open. My mother stepped outside, arms crossed. "You called the cops on me?" she remarked. "You stole my car," I snapped back. She scoffed. "It was just sitting there? You weren't using it." I stared at her, trying to grasp the absurdity of this logic. "It's my car. How did you even get it?" She didn't respond. But I already knew. They had an extra key. "Mom," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "If you don't give me my key, I'm calling the cops again." Her expression flickered for a second. Then, without speaking, she stormed inside. A minute later, she returned and threw the key at me. It struck my chest and landed on the grass. "There," she spat. "Happy?" I picked it up, trying not to be angry. "I'm taking my things. And then I'm leaving, for good." I walked past her and into the home. Lily waited in the hall, looking nervous. "She took your laptop and pawned it," she said quietly. I closed my eyes. Take a breath in, breathe out. Then I turned to my mother. "Where's my laptop?" She raised her chin. "I told you. We needed money. That was it." I took out my phone, dialed 911 for the second time this week, and let her watch. "Yes, I want to report a stolen vehicle and stolen property," I responded, looking her dead in the eyes. "My mother has just revealed that she pawned my laptop without authorization." Her face lost its color. This time, she was the one who had to deal with the police. My mother worried when she realized I wasn't bluffing. "You can't do this," she muttered, her tone low. "I'm your mother." I ignored her. "Yes, officer. I have proof that she admitted to taking my belongings and pawning them," I stated over the phone. "I want to press charges." Lily stood motionless, her gaze flitting between us. My mother's hands were shaking now. She was absolutely taken aback, as if she believed she could keep pushing and I would never push back. "Kevin," she said again, this time softly, like if she were pleading. "We're struggling. Your father's in jail." I had no choice. "You had a choice," I explained. "You could have worked more. You could have sold your own stuff. You could have asked for help instead of throwing me out like garbage." She blinked rapidly, her face contorted. I was angry. I laughed. "Yeah, so was I." I heard sirens outside. My mother jumped. A few minutes later, 2 officers walked through the door. "Sir, did you call about the stolen property?" one of them inquired. I nodded and pointed to my mother. "She took my laptop and pawned it. I want to press charges." My mother gasped as if I'd stabbed her. "Kevin, don't do this." The officers turned to her. "Ma'am, is this true?" She hesitated, her gaze shifting between me, Lily, and the cops. I could see her calculating, attempting to determine whether she could lie her way out of this. Then Lily spoke. "She told him herself. Just before he called you." My mother snapped her head at Lily so quickly, it was almost frightening. "You little..." "Ma'am." One of the cops interrupted her. "Do you have a receipt from the pawn shop?" Her face fell. She knew what was coming. They took her outside. I looked through the window while they spoke with her for a few minutes. Handcuffs appeared unexpectedly. She was straining, crying, and yelling. Neighbors looked through their blinds. The entire street most likely heard her weeping about how she was simply a struggling mother and how unjust this was. Lily's realization. Lily stood beside me, looking out the window. She gulped hard. "Is this really happening?" I nodded. "Yes." And for the first time in a long time, I felt calm. The text message. My phone buzzed with a message from an unexpected number. "You're going to regret this." My chest tightened. I read it again. Then I realized, my father had been released on bond. When I saw that message, I knew exactly what had occurred. Someone had bailed my father out, and I had a fairly solid idea who. Probably one of his old drinking cronies, or perhaps a distant family member who hadn't heard the entire story. In any case, he was done and angry. I showed Lily the text. Her face turned pallid. "Kevin, you need to leave." "No," I replied. I turned to face the cops, who were still outside dealing with my mother. "Can I go in and get the rest of my stuff?" One of them nodded. "As long as it's okay with your sister." Lily was already moving. "Let's make this quick." We walked upstairs and packed everything that was mine. Clothes, old video games. Even the silly things I had left behind, thinking I'd come back for them one day. I was not coming back. Ever. As I took the last box to my car, my mother was still crying in the driveway, pleading with the officers to let her go. "This is a misunderstanding." He's my son. He wouldn't do this to me. I just strolled by her, unconcerned. She screamed my name, as if it would suddenly change anything. I got in my car. Lily stood in front of my window, shuffling from foot to foot. I don't want to stay here. I exhaled. I know you don't, but you only have 2 years until you're 18. She nodded with watery eyes. I'll be fine. I'll just be quiet and keep my head down. Call me if anything happens. She nodded again. Then headlights arrived on the roadway. An automobile turned onto our street. My stomach sank. It was my father. He pulled up right as I started the engine. He hardly had time to go before I put it in reverse and backed into the street. He stared at me with hatred in his eyes, as if he were about to approach and try something. I rolled down my window just enough to carry my voice. You try to come near me again, I'm filing a restraining order. His hands tightened into fists. You think you're better than us? I smiled. I know I am. Then I drove away. It was the last time I saw them. I blocked my parents' phone numbers, changed my financial information, moved, and never looked back. Lily's independence Lily kept out for 2 years, just as she promised. She left as soon as she turned 18. She moved in with a buddy and headed off to college. We're still talking all the time. The consequences? My parents? My father never had a job. My mother lost the house a year later. They bounced around for a while, destroying relationships with family. And the last I heard, they were renting a dilapidated flat in a poor neighborhood. They attempted to reach out to me, Facebook messages, unknown numbers, even letters. I never responded because they had made their pick for Christmas dinner, and I made mine. Now to the next story 6. My mother-in-law wrote my husband's ex's name on my birthday cake, so I pranked her back on hers. She went quiet, and I blocked her. Allow me to tell you about my mother-in-law, the queen of criticism. She made it apparent right away that she didn't like me or our marriage. Every time she entered our house, it was as if she had a radar for spotting flaws in everything. She had a secret plan to nitpick her way through our lives. Take this one instance. She stated that she preferred a specific type of tea and could not stand anything else. I thought I'd be the perfect host and get her that same tea, but it wasn't enough for her. As soon as she caught a scent, she acted as if I had served her some sort of deadly sludge and tossed it out, insisting she would never say she enjoyed something like that. But that was only the top of the iceberg. This woman had a knack for being snooty in the most innovative ways. She made sarcastic remarks about my cuisine, clothing choices, and even how I furnished our home. It felt like she had a personal vengeance against me. You'd think my husband would put his foot down and advocate for me, right? Well, he tried and failed. He'd always try to smooth things over, saying that she needed to respect our decisions and embrace me as a member of the family, but she wouldn't budge. It was as if she wanted to be the family's gatekeeper and determined I wasn't up to the task. Seriously, who does that? We were meant to be a family, yet she treated me like an intruder. So I couldn't believe it when I learned that my mother-in-law, of all people, had planned a surprise birthday party for me. It was a strange twist given that she had never been a fan of mine. I had conflicting feelings, wondering if she was pulling a prank or actually wanting to make amends. Little did I know that my birthday surprise was going to be anything but joyful. The day began with the usual birthday celebrations, balloons, decorations, and smiles. I tried my hardest to put my worries aside and enjoy the moment, but then the truth hit: the birthday cake. As they brought out the cake, I was delighted to see what it looked like, but imagine my surprise when I saw my husband's ex's name spelled out in huge, strong characters rather than mine. Seriously, how could this happen? I glanced to my mother-in-law, trying to figure out what was going on. She had a smirk on her face that suggested she was hiding something. Then she casually said that she had misspelled my name because she was becoming older and forgetful. Yes, right. It was evident that she did it on purpose. Who misspells their daughter-in-law's name and writes the ex's name on her birthday cake? It felt like a cruel joke, and I couldn't believe she had sunk so low. Everyone else seemed to be in astonishment, unsure how to react. I tried to remain calm, but deep inside, I was hurt and enraged. It was difficult not to take it personally, given all of her caustic words and disdain. When my husband saw the birthday cake, he was as surprised as I was. He sincerely wanted to surprise me with a unique birthday celebration, but his mother stepped in and offered to prepare the entire thing herself. It felt like a promising sign that she was now willing to try to improve our relationship. She expressed to my husband that she wanted him to have a good relationship with me and was willing to make an effort. It was as if she was playing the part of a compassionate and understanding mother-in-law, leading him to believe she had turned a new leaf. He had no idea that it was all a ruse, a devious scheme to ruin my birthday and harm me in the process. I did not want to ruin the party, so I simply smiled. I had other things planned. Now, let me tell you some backstory. My mother-in-law seemed to have a penchant for causing difficulties by comparing me to my husband's ex. It was ironic, because my husband had informed me that she had never approved of his ex. Talk about déjà vu. What made it even more humorous was that my mother-in-law had been my father-in-law's second wife. It was as if she had casually forgotten her own history while messing with ours. The irony was too real. The narrative of my father-in-law was a mystery in and of itself. My spouse knew little about his other family, and I hadn't provided much information either. We just knew that my father-in-law had two families, and his other family seemed uninterested in this one. We heard rumors about a distant and troubled relationship with them, but the specifics were kept under wraps. It was as if there was a hidden barrier that we were never supposed to breach. After a year of marriage, I discovered that my father-in-law's divorce from his first wife was caused solely by my mother-in-law. It was like something out of a soap opera, with family secrets and drama around every corner. I couldn't help but wonder if my mother-in-law's incessant comparisons were an attempt to establish herself and fill the shoes of my husband's first wife. It was as if she was attempting to erase the past and establish herself as the ideal wife. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't change the fact that my husband's prior marriage was unrelated to me. We were our own pair, with our own special love story. Coming back to the present, as I previously stated, I did not respond. I simply smiled at her mistake. My mother-in-law's birthday was the next day, so I decided to return the surprise. I decided to play a prank by writing my father-in-law's first wife's name on the birthday cake rather than my mother-in-law's. Of course, I pretended to be completely innocent, blaming the bakery for the mix-up. Oh, her expression when she saw the cake, it was amazing. She was furious, and I couldn't help but smirk. It felt like karma had come full circle. All those times she had belittled me and made me feel unworthy, and now she was the one suffering the consequences. She began yelling and throwing a tantrum, but I stayed calm and composed. My husband attempted to calm her down, but she refused to listen to reason. It felt freeing to watch her lose control for once. I innocently asked whether she was okay, appearing to be unaware of the situation. Inside, I was gleefully chuckling. But she stormed out, unable to take the humiliation. My husband seemed perplexed and inquired as to if I had done it purposely. I refused to admit the reality, so I pretended it was an honest mistake. Come on, I must have picked up the wrong cake, I said with a completely innocent smile. He was completely taken in. It was my little secret, my opportunity to give her back what she deserved. I knew I shouldn't have descended to her level, but I couldn't stop myself from giving her a taste of her own medicine, and it felt great. Do you think I went too far by bringing up past wounds? My small birthday cake prank appears to have sparked quite a controversy. My mother-in-law is constantly moaning, claiming that I did it on purpose. However, as the saying goes, what goes around comes around. Of course, I denied it and pretended to be completely innocent. I reminded her about the time she ruined up my birthday with the tea incident and how I didn't respond the same way she did. Come on, it was only a cake, right? There's no need to blow everything out of proportion, but you know how mother-in-laws are. They're always looking for an excuse to be dramatic. She enjoys the spotlight, and this was her chance to shine. The entire family is aware of how volatile she can be, so it comes as no surprise that they are all on my side. They've witnessed her dramatic antics before, and they're not buying it this time. It's actually rather funny how the tables have turned. She's used to being the center of attention and getting her way, but this time, she's left red-faced and enraged. I have to say, I am loving the program. My spouse seems to be torn between defending his mother and believing me. But, well, I'm not going to tell you about my little joke. Let him think about what he wants. Everything's in good humor, right? Update 2. Since the small cake prank, my mother-in-law has been surprisingly quiet and has not bothered us much. It's like a breath of fresh air, and life has become significantly more calm. Maybe my little joke had a bigger influence on her than I realized. Perhaps she realized her dramatic theatrics were not getting her anywhere and decided to tone it down a notch. Or perhaps she's simply sulking in a corner, nursing her injured pride. Regardless, I'm not complaining. I can finally breathe without being constantly scrutinized and criticized. It's as if a weight has been removed off my shoulders, and I feel more liberated than ever before. Of course, I am not stupid enough to believe that this newfound peace would remain indefinitely. Knowing my mother-in-law, she might be able to recover from her drama quickly. But for now, I'm just going to enjoy it. Update 3. You know the saying, if you can't defeat them, block them. And this is exactly what I did. Life has been so much better since I decided to block my mother-in-law. No more nagging or drama, only lovely, peaceful silence. And thank you to everyone who supported me in the comments. It is comforting to know that I am not alone in dealing with a dramatic mother-in-law. Your words of support have given me strength. When she confronted me about blocking her, I just acted calmly and blamed it on network troubles. Hey, a little white lie never hurts anyone, right? Furthermore, it's enjoyable to tease her a little. I must say, I'm loving my newfound power and control. Blocking her has given me a sense of freedom and calm that I never thought imaginable. It's as if I have the remote control for her drama, and I get to choose when to turn it on or off. To everyone dealing with a dramatic mother-in-law, be strong and don't allow anyone to knock you down. Until next time, be careful and live your best life. Bye for now. Opinion 1. NTA for sure. Dealing with a demanding mother-in-law may be a nightmare, and you took the necessary precautions to keep your sanity. Blocking her was a wise decision, because network troubles occur all the time, right? You deserve to live a tranquil, drama-free existence. Don't allow someone to guilt you into coping with unwanted karma. Continue doing you and enjoy the well-deserved peace. Opinion 2. NTA is my gal. Mother-in-laws can be a pain in the neck at times, and you may have to take action yourself. It's critical to prioritize your mental health, and if that means avoiding toxic people, then so be it. Stay strong, and don't let anyone make you feel guilty about putting yourself first. Now to the next story 7. My mother manipulated my fiancé into cheating with my brother. I exposed their lies, and now they're paying the price. My name is Stephen, 31, and I've been with my fiancé Lynn, 28 for 2 years. We've been engaged for 6 months. My younger brother Wesley, 29, lives around 15 minutes from us. Our mother, Nancy, 55, has always been intense, but she has recently been acting strangely with Lynn. It began with Mom making odd comments about Wesley's gym success or how some women simply need a more physically present male. I work 50 to 60 hours per week to provide for our future, and Wesley works as a personal trainer. Nothing wrong with it, but Mom treats him like he's a Greek god. Last month, I noticed Lynn acting differently during family dinners, more silent and checking her phone more frequently. I dismissed it as wedding planning stress. Things went horribly wrong yesterday. Mom invited Lynn over to discuss wedding plans while I was supposed to be at work. My crew finished early, so I decided to surprise them. I drove up to Mom's house and pushed open the window. I overheard everything. Mom was in full manipulation mode. Lynn, honey, I'm telling you this because I care. Steven's just like his father, always working, never home. Wesley could give you the attention you deserve. He's asked about you, you know. He says he sees how lonely you are. Lynn's response made my blood turn cold. Nancy, I don't know. Steven's been distant lately. Mom intervened. He's the stronger man. You need a real husband. Someone who will be there, not just provide a paycheck. Wesley could give you that passionate life you deserve. I stood frozen. Lynn then stated something that shocked me. Wesley has been texting me, nothing inappropriate. That was when I walked in. The expressions on their faces. Mom had the guts to smile as if she were doing me a favor. Lynn became white like a sheet. I did not yell. I did not need to. I simply looked at Mom and said, "So this is what wedding planning looks like?" Mom straightened up, feeling righteous. Someone had to say something. "You're never home, always at work." "Wesley," I cut her off. "Wesley this, Wesley that. Really funny how you never mentioned the 3 failed relationships he's had this year alone." Lynn attempted to explain. "Stephen, it's not what you think." "Let me see your phone," I requested. There is no more sound. "If nothing is inappropriate, show me the texts." She gripped her phone closer. Mom started screaming about how I'm being controlling, how I don't trust Lynn, and how Wesley would never demand to see someone's phone. Rich, coming from the lady who reads her father's emails just to make sure. I walked out. Lynn followed me to the driveway, crying about how confused she was and how her mother had gotten into her head. She vowed to delete Wesley's phone number, as if it mattered nothing. I got home to find 6 missed calls from Wesley. He texted me, "We need to talk, bro." We sure do. Mom has been blowing up my phone all day. Obviously, being paranoid is costing me a nice woman. Dad also called, attempting to maintain the status quo as usual. You know how your mother gets, son? She means well. Means well? She is actively attempting to set up my brother with my fiancé, and Lynn is sleeping in the guest room, claiming she wants space to ponder. Funny how that works. What is the worst part? My friend Patrick informed me that Wesley had been turning up at the coffee shop near Lynn's employment for weeks, Coincidentally during her lunch hour. Very subtle, bro. I'm not playing their games. I'm not going to sit around waiting for any more innocent texts or coffee shop coincidences. I just received a missed call from mom, which was most likely another lecture about how Wesley always made time for family or something. I'm going to sleep on the couch tonight. Tomorrow's going to be fascinating. Edit. Holy cow, this blew out? Thank you for your support. To answer some typical questions. Yes, we are in couples counseling. No, I didn't know about the texts until yesterday. Wesley is still blowing up my phone. I left him on red. Some of you considered this a hoax because no mother would do this. You're lucky to have normal parents. Lynn texted me that she'll be staying at her sister's apartment until things quiet down. Yes, it will help. Mom has already called twice this morning, have not responded. I'll provide an update once I've determined my next course of action. Right now, I need a drink and some sleep. Update 1. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who supported my last post. I wish I had better news, but everything happened precisely as some of you expected. Sorry for the lengthy post, but I needed to get everything off my chest. Quick recap. I'm 31 and I noticed my mother, Nancy, 55, acting strangely around my fiancé, Lynn, 28, and making jokes about my brother, Wesley, 29, being more of a man than me. You warned me, and I should have listened sooner. The last 3 weeks have been horrible. Lynn began going out more, claiming girls' evenings every Thursday and occasionally Saturdays. I didn't think much of it until I realized she came home smelling like Wesley's terrible fragrance. You know the type, the one that every wannabe Instagram fitness dude uses. Last Thursday, she stated that she was going to see her friend Amber for cocktails. Something felt odd. She was dressed differently than usual and had been texting all day with a strange smile. I decided to drive past Wesley's apartment complex on my way to meet Patrick for our weekly Thursday gaming session. Call it intuition or anything, but her car was right there in the visiting area. I waited in my truck for about 20 minutes, feeling my blood pressure rising with every minute. Then I noticed them through his ground floor window. They sat on his couch, her head on his shoulder, watching something on his laptop. My own brother and my fiancé, looking as comfortable as can be. I am not proud of what happened next, but I am also not regretful. I marched straight up and knocked on his door. The look on their faces as they opened it, Wesley in his dumb compression shirt, Lynn in the things I got her for her birthday. I'll never forget this. How long, is all I asked? Lynn began crying, but not the guilty type, but the I got caught kind. Wesley attempted to walk between us, inflating his chest like he often does. Bro, we need to talk about this like adults. I cut him off. How long? 2 months, Lynn muttered. It just happened. You're always working late, and Wesley understands me better. I laughed. Actually, I laughed. Understand you better? The guy who still lives in a rented studio apartment at 29? The one who sells overpriced protein powder to college kids? That's when everything started to go wrong. Wesley tried to throw a punch. He was always a hothead. I grabbed his arm and shoved him back into his flat. Really, you, my fiancé, and then try to hit me? Real classy, bro. I called our mother right there on speakerphone. Do you want to know what she said? She genuinely chuckled and said, well honey, I tried to tell you. Wesley's always been the stronger one. Lynn needs a real man, not someone who's going to bore her to death. Within a few hours, the family group chat had exploded. Wesley played the victim, alleging I threatened him. I did not. Lynn used the butterfly emoji to accompany a hazy Instagram tale about following your heart. My mother began calling everyone, weaving her version of events in which I was the evil person who drove Lynn away due to my workaholic tendencies. Dad is staying out of it, which is typical. My sister texted that she is appalled with all of them. The extended family is divided. Half believes I should man up and fight for my relationship with my unfaithful fiancé, while the other half has some sense. Lynn moved out yesterday, while I was at work. She took everything I ever gave her, as well as other things she didn't own. She left her ring on the kitchen counter with the remark, I never meant to hurt you. Classic. The kicker? Mom organized a family supper tonight. Guess who arrived together? Yes, Wesley and Lynn are holding hands like teenagers. Mom looked so proud. You'd think she had planned a royal wedding. I didn't go, of course. I sat at home, looking for all the indications I'd missed, the unexpected gym sessions, the new clothes, the way she'd turn her phone away when texting Wesley, showing up at family occasions he typically avoided, and Mom's frequent comparisons. Here's the thing, I'm not sad. I am not even angry anymore. I'm just finished. I'm over Wesley's phony alpha guy act. I'm done with Lynn's victim routine. I'm done with mom's manipulation. They think I'll just take it and show up at Christmas as if nothing happened. They have no idea what is coming. TLDR. I caught my fiancé with my brother. Mother practically arranged the whole thing. They're now playing the happy couple while portraying me as the bad guy, but I'm not taking it lying down. Edit. Many thanks for the prizes and messages. To everyone who has asked, yes, I have already spoken with a lawyer about what Lynn took, and no, I am not going to try to work it out as some of you advised. Some bridges need to be burned. Edit 2. Stop DMing me and asking for Wesley's Instagram. I understand you want to disgrace him, but I'm doing it my way. Update 2. It's been 3 weeks since my previous update, and holy, everything just went horribly wrong. Remember how Wesley and my mother used to gloat about how I'd ultimately come around and accept things as they are? Yeah, karma is a bitch, and I am her favorite wingman right now. First and foremost, thank you for all of your supportive direct messages. You guys kept me focused when I wanted to drink myself stupid. Special thanks to the person who advised that I look into Wesley's business methods. You were onto something there. So, remember how Wesley was constantly bragging about his personal training business? It turns out Mr. Perfect was not exactly following the rules. All those protein supplements he sold to his customers, he was getting them from a shady supplier and repackaging them in his garage. I may have provided an anonymous tip to the fitness certification board regarding his unlicensed practice. Whoops! What is the best part? He was conducting his business using Venmo and Cash App without reporting anything. That type of information tends to pique the curiosity of tax officials. I didn't even have to do anything illegal. I simply forwarded some of his social media postings where he was literally bragging about his cash-only dealings to the appropriate individuals. My mother, Nancy, was not pleased when Wesley's certification was suspended. She came to my flat last Tuesday, yelling about how I was killing the family. I just stood there sipping my coffee as she was having a meltdown in the hallway. My neighbor even filmed it. Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. TikTok truly took off. You're just jealous because Wesley's a real man, she yelled. I just chuckled and added, real men pay their taxes, Mom. The expression on her face was amazing. But this is where things get better. Remember how my mother was always the top real estate agent in our area? It turns out she's been cutting corners too. Nothing huge, but enough that when someone, certainly not me, began investigating her business operations, things became intriguing. What about those fantastic reviews she was always bragging about? Half of them vanished after being identified as suspicious. Lynn is beginning to detect flaws in her beautiful new man. Wesley had to cancel their weekend excursion since he could no longer afford it. She tried to contact me through Patrick last week, stating she misses our conversations. Yes, right. Patrick told her that I was too preoccupied with my new promotion to care about her drama. Oh, did I mention I was promoted? It turns out that channeling your anger into work rather than drinking produces positive results. The rise is good, but the timing is even better. Wesley is having to move back in with our parents because he can no longer afford his apartment. The family is now separated. Half of them are not speaking to me, which is good because I didn't like those cousins in the first place. The other half continues to send me funny emojis whenever Wesley or Mom write cryptic Facebook statements about being strong in the face of critics. Everything came to a climax last night at a family meeting intended to sort things out. Mom and Wesley ambushed me at Dad's home. They attempted to guilt-trip me about family loyalty while Lynn sat there looking uncomfortable. I quickly brought out my phone and showed the video of Mom telling Lynn that Wesley was more manly than me. Dad had not seen that one before. His face changed from crimson to purple quite quickly. He requested Mom to go. This is the first time I've ever seen him stand up to her. Wesley tried to get in my face, saying I was sad for not fighting fairly. I simply smiled and asked him how his protein shake company was going. He swung at me, missed, and his face hit Dad's coffee table. He now has a shattered nose that matches his wounded ego. Lynn began crying, stating that this was not what she wanted. I simply shrugged and replied, "You made your bed. I hope it was worthwhile." I then went out, leaving Wesley bleeding on Dad's carpet. This morning, my phone was flooded with alerts. Wesley's certification board made their final verdict online, and he will be barred from personal training for at least 2 years. Mom's real estate broker fired her after additional complaints surfaced, and Lynn? She is informing everybody who will listen that she made a mistake. What is the best way to exact revenge? I am truly happier today. I got my own place, my job is doing well, and I've met someone new who values loyalty. Life is funny like that. TLDR. Brother and ex-fiancé believed they had won via cheating. Mom backed them. I played the long game, legally revealed their nefarious methods, And now they're all paying the price, while my life is better than ever. Edit. Holy cow, this blew out. RIP. Inbox. No, I will not post the TikTok video. I'm trying to maintain some privacy here. Edit 2. Stop asking for Lynn's social media. It's not cool, guys. Edit 3. Yes, Wesley attempted to swing at me. No, I did not press charges. His shattered nose and ruined reputation were enough. Finally, an update. Thank you to everyone for your support. It's been 2 months since my last update, and things have really escalated. Grab your popcorn, for Karma has finally arrived, and she's a stone-cold TLDR. Wesley's life crashed. Lynn crawled back. LOL, no. And my mother's idyllic little world disintegrated. Sometimes vengeance is simply watching others kill themselves. At 6 a.m., the phone started vibrating. Last Thursday. I ignored Wesley's first several calls, but by the time I got out of the shower, I had 19 missed calls from him, Lynn, and my mother. Didn't bother phoning back. I just prepared coffee and watched the show on Facebook. Remember how I described Wesley's supplement business in my previous post? It turns out the protein shakes he was selling were not quite legal. Someone, not me, anonymously informed the health department about his unlicensed company. They conducted a surprise check and discovered his garage filled with outdated supplements that he was repackaging as premium protein blends. What is the best part? He had been peddling this trash at his gym. When word spread, his clients began commenting about feeling sick. The gym promptly dismissed him. His personal training certificate? Gone. My mother used to brag about her affluent clients. It's all gone. But wait, things get better. Remember the electrical work Wesley did at Mom's office? The one she kept telling me to admire because your brother is so handy? It's interesting how the building inspector showed up after receiving images of unlawful electrical work. My mother's real estate office had to close for 2 weeks for emergency repairs. It cost her a fortune, and she failed to close 3 sales. I did not do anything wrong. I simply ensured that the appropriate individuals received the correct information at the right time. Lynn began to reconsider her upgrade when Wesley found himself unable to pay their flat any longer. She genuinely showed up at my house last week, weeping about how she had made a mistake. I told her I was busy. I was actually preparing for a date with Zoe, the new receptionist at my gym. Yes, Wesley's former gym. Petty? Maybe. Worth it? Absolutely. The real satisfaction came during Sunday's family meal. Mom insisted on these wee-wee meetings, using them to highlight her successful offspring. This time, I did turn up. First time since the separation. I brought Zoe. Mom almost choked when she saw us. Wesley and Lynn were also present, both of whom appeared unhappy. Wesley is wearing his old high school clothes since he cannot afford new ones. Lynn was trying to capture my attention, but I was too busy telling everyone about my promotion, supervisor position, company truck, the full thing. Mom tried to divert the subject, but Dad, who has finally grown a spine, kept inquiring about my job. Then Wesley lost it. He began yelling about how I had wrecked his life. Mom leaped in to defend her precious baby boy. I just sat there eating potatoes while Wesley had a meltdown. He even accused me of reporting him to everyone. Of course, we couldn't prove anything. I simply smiled and inquired whether he had tried the new protein shakes at the gym. I heard they were legit. Lynn attempted to play mediator, which was amusing. Steven, can't we all just get past this? Lynn, what are you moving past? Your decision to become a stronger man who now cannot afford Dollar General protein powder. Mom's real estate business is suffering. It turns out that when you lose your office for 2 weeks and are charged with health code breaches, people begin searching elsewhere. The gossip group she adored? They're having a field day with her handyman son and the expired supplement scandal. What about the cherry on top? Dad eventually spoke up. He told Mom he was weary of her playing favorites. He has been sleeping in the guest room and talks about taking some time to reflect. I did not have to throw a single punch or break any laws. I simply sat back and watched Karma do her thing. Wesley's strength proved ineffective when his house of cards crumbled. Mom's beloved golden child is now the neighborhood joke, and Lynn, last I heard, is looking for teaching jobs in another district when parents at her school learned about the controversy. Me? Life is good. Zoe is great. She respects a man who works hard rather than just bragging about his protein shakes. The promotion came with a good raise, and best of all, I slept like a baby knowing that all I had to do was wait for their own deeds to catch up with them. Mom still calls occasionally, typically wailing about how I have pulled the family apart. I simply let it go to voicemail. Wesley attempted to connect on LinkedIn last week, Denied. Lynn sent a lengthy email discussing closure. Unread messages were deleted. They desired a stronger man. They did get one, but it wasn't what they expected. Edit. Because people keep asking, yes, all of the reports and tips were entirely real. They were actually selling expired vitamins. The electrical work was clearly not up to code. I just made sure everyone noticed. Now to the next story 8. I raised my wife's children as my own, but when they disrespected me, I stopped providing and left. Am I the asshole? I've always believed in a few fundamental principles: working hard for what you have, accepting responsibility for your actions, and remaining loyal to those you care about. I also learned the hard way that loving the wrong people can lead to serious problems. This entire story is about how my views were put to the test, and how everything I thought I understood about family came crumbling down. To be honest, this isn't a happy story. It's about being taken advantage of, being exploited, and finally recognizing when enough is enough. I am not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm going to tell you exactly how it happened because I believe it's vital to be honest about these things. We often hear of happy endings, but sometimes the ending is simply an ending. And sometimes that's fine. It is actually necessary. I'm not trying to be a saint here. I made mistakes. I was perhaps very trusting and inclined to believe in the best in others. I ignored certain red signs and paid the consequences. However, I also learned a lot. So, how did it all begin? It began with a woman named Amelia. She was widowed. Her husband, a military officer, had died. She had 2 young children, a boy named Daniel, who was about 4 years old and full of energy, and a baby girl named Mia, who was just learning to walk. I met them through a mutual friend, and I could tell immediately away that Amelia was struggling. She wasn't just sad, though she certainly was. It was more than that. She was totally fatigued, visibly weary. You could see it in the way she held herself, the dark circles under her eyes, and the way she appeared to be running on fumes. It wasn't just I'm tired tiredness, it was a deep, bone-weary exhaustion caused by carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. I didn't intervene because I felt obligated or anything. It was not some sort of knight in shining armor complex. It was only that I actually saw her. I observed her struggle and wanted to help. I wanted to make things a little simpler for her and the children. I had a genuine desire to provide some stability and support in their lives. I began by helping out in small ways, such as offering to keep the kids so she could take a nap or running errands. However, it quickly became more. I found myself yearning to be a father figure for those children. Their father had passed away, and I felt confident that I could fill in for him, not to replace him, of course, but to provide them with the love and support that every child needs. I suppose you could say I was contrasting my own values, hard labor, responsibility, and loyalty, with the circumstances they were in. I wanted to give them what their father couldn't, not because I had to, but because I really wanted to. It felt right. It felt like the beginning of something positive, something real. And for a long time, it was okay. I poured myself into it. I worked long hours not only to pay the bills, but also to ensure that those children had everything they required. A decent school, great clothes, a pleasant home, lots of food on the table, all of it. I prioritized their needs before my own. I wasn't simply attempting to meet their basic needs. I also wanted to alleviate any sense of loss they may have had because their father was not present. I wanted to fill the vacuum and make them feel safe and cherished. It wasn't all about the material goods, however. I was also there for them emotionally. I attended every single school event, soccer game, and play. I cheered the loudest. I was their biggest fan. I planned birthday parties, family vacations, and did all of the dad things. They answered. They loved me back. They addressed me as Dad, rather than Thomas. And you know what? I believed it, I actually did. I felt like I was the luckiest man alive. I believed I had established a genuine loving family. I was so caught up in the idea, in the desire for it to be true, that I failed to notice the cracks that were beginning to appear. I was so intent on creating the perfect photo that I ignored the warning indications. Looking back, I realized that I was building on a foundation that was not as firm as I had assumed. But at the moment I was fully committed. I invested my heart and soul. I was determined to make this work and be the greatest father figure I could be. I put everything I had into it, and for a while, it appeared to be paying off. We had rituals, conventions, and inside jokes. We were a family. I felt confident that emotion was what kept me going. The initial signals of problems were minor, almost insignificant. A few comments from the youngsters, some backtalk, and a roll of the eyes here and there. Nothing significant. Nothing unusual for children growing up. I brushed it off. I told myself that was just standard teenage behavior, a phase they were passing through. I didn't want to perceive it as more than that. I recall Daniel, he must have been around 13 or 14, making a nasty remark about how I wasn't cool because I wouldn't let him stay out late. Mia, who was a few years younger, responded with a similarly nasty remark. It stung a little, but I laughed it off. I told myself they were only testing boundaries and pushing limits, so as all teens do. As the children grew older, the disdain became more obvious. By the age of 17, Daniel had become a full-fledged teenager. He began ignoring curfews, dismissing any advice I offered, and generally acting as if he was entitled to do whatever he wanted. It was typical teenage rebellion, but it felt different. Sharper, somehow. There was a meanness that I couldn't ignore. Mia, who was around 14 at the time, began copying her brother's conduct. She would roll her eyes at me, ignore my orders, and dismiss any worries I expressed. They established a united front against me, demonstrating that they did not respect my authority. Or me, for that matter. It felt like they were ganging up on me, seeing how far they could push me. Amelia's reply, or lack thereof, exacerbated the situation. She declined to intervene, she would not back me up. She'd just sit there, generally looking at her phone, pretending not to notice what was going on. Sometimes she would even gently undermine me. Maybe she'd appear to be distracted by her phone or sigh, as if I was being unreasonable. It wasn't simply passive, she seemed to actively encourage their actions. She'd make excuses for them. Oh, they're just tired. They're going through a phase, or we need to keep the peace. There was always something. However, it was actually a pattern of supporting their disdain. She was allowing them to get away with it, undermining my authority and making me feel more lonely. I started to feel like I was the only one who cared about setting boundaries and teaching them what was right and wrong. I began to mistrust Amelia's motives. Was she truly this oblivious, or was she purposely undermining me? I received my first true wake-up call about this time, but I still didn't completely understand what was going on. The true breaking point, when everything began to fall apart, occurred one night. Daniel arrived home much beyond his curfew. I'm talking hours later, and he hadn't called, texted, or anything. I was scared sick, of course, but when he eventually walked in, he acted as if it was nothing. I asked him calmly where he had been, just a simple question to ensure accountability. He did not even look at me. He simply stated, "Relax, I'm not a kid." That was it. There was no apology or explanation, just a flippant brush-off. And then he shouted, "You're not my real dad. Stop acting like you own me." All those years of love, care, and support were flung back in my face. It felt like a punch in the belly. Mia, who was standing there, chipped in. "Yeah, you're just some guy mom married." As if all the years we'd spent together and the experiences we'd shared were meaningless. Something inside me has just broken. It wasn't anger, not yet, but rather a deep sense of disillusionment. And the worst part? Amelia did not say anything. She just stood there silently. Her silence represented the ultimate betrayal. It proved all I had suspected, that I was nothing more than a convenience to them, a provider, someone to handle the things their true father couldn't. It was the defining moment for me, when I learned that the family I believed I had created was a fiction. It was not long after the first episode that it occurred again. This time, it was Mia. She had made a mess in the kitchen, so I asked her to clean it up. Simple enough, right? Basic responsibilities. But instead, she simply looked at me and said, "Why don't you do it? It's your house, isn't it?" That stung. It wasn't just the contempt, it was how she said it, as if I were a servant whose sole function was to clean up after them. It accentuated my outsider status, reducing me to little more than a provider and cleaner. It was an intentional attempt to make me feel insignificant. And then, as if on cue, Daniel added the identical line. "You're not even our real dad." It was as if they were tag-teaming me, reaffirming their rejection and ensuring I understood my place, or lack thereof, in their lives. But this time, Amelia's reply sealed the deal. She didn't yell or become irritated. She just looked at me nonchalantly, not glancing up from her phone, and remarked, "They have a point, Thomas. Maybe you should back off." That was all. That was the moment I realized it was finished. It was no longer just the children's disdain. Amelia had explicitly agreed with them. She was siding with them against me, the guy who had spent years caring for them. It wasn't a moment of rage or even pain, not really. It was a moment of clarity. I eventually realized I was finished. There was no going back. This was not a family. It was a fake, and I was finally ready to leave. It was a gentle epiphany, a peaceful acceptance of the fact. I was no longer striving to hang on to something that was not genuine. I was ready to let go, so I did something I never imagined I would do. I paused. I stopped giving, caring, and trying. It wasn't an impulsive decision. It was a calculated, thoughtful one. I've just withdrawn. I stopped providing for them, no more rides, allowances, protection, guidance, or worry. I let them face the repercussions of their behavior. It was a total 180 from the way I had been for years. I was always there for them, no matter what. Now I was gone. I'm not going to lie, it stung. It contradicted every instinct I had. I had committed so much of myself in this family, and it was really terrible to simply walk away. But I knew it was important. I needed to defend myself. I knew it would not be easy. I knew they would react and try to push back. But I was prepared for it. I'd hit my limit. I gave them everything I had, and they threw it back at me. I was finished being the doormat. At first, they laughed. They insulted me, made caustic remarks, and smirked whenever I passed by. They believed they had won. They assumed they didn't need me. They were relying on Amelia to deliver all I was providing. They were wrong. They'd make these tiny jabs, copying my directions and mocking the way I tried to set boundaries. They'd exclaim, "Oh, are we breaking the rules?" while rolling their eyes and smirking at each other. It was as if they were attempting to provoke me, to elicit a reaction from me. Oh, Amelia made sure to pick up my slack. She paid for their small shopping trips and ensured that their weekends were still full with fast food and excessive spending. She kept them comfortable, smug, and convinced them they didn't need me. But I knew it would not last. I knew Amelia had few resources. She did not have the same salary as I did. She couldn't keep up that kind of spending indefinitely. So I stayed quiet. I let them have fun. I let them think they could get away with it. I knew the reality check was coming. I didn't participate. I did not argue. I did not react. I simply observed calmly, waiting for the inevitable. It was a strange kind of patience, formed by the conviction that I was correct. I knew their confidence was based on a flimsy foundation that would soon disintegrate. I simply had to wait it out. It was a waiting game. Then, gradually but certainly, things began to alter. Shopping outings became less regular. Fast food trips became fewer and farther between. New garments have ceased emerging. Small changes at first, but visible. Then more problems began to surface. School expenses became an issue. Daniel got into some difficulty at school, and Amelia wasn't sure how to handle it. Mia smashed her phone and had no money to repair it. I remember the first time Daniel missed his school transportation. He'd always taken it for granted, rarely trying to express gratitude. Now he was alone. He had to run for the bus, and from what I've heard, he barely made it, huffing and puffing, absolutely out of breath. It's a minor detail, but it was symbolic. It was the first noticeable break in their comfy world. And I'll confess it. I felt a sense of satisfaction, not joy, precisely, but a quiet vindication. I knew what it was like to strive and work for everything you had. I recall when I was younger and had to work hard to make ends meet. They, on the other hand, have always received everything. Naturally, I said nothing. I just watched. I could see Mia's frustration when she learned her broken phone would not be magically replaced. I overheard her complain to Amelia, as well as Amelia's increasingly feeble justifications. She was running out of money and realized she couldn't offer everything I had. That following day, Mia had a major breakdown, complaining about how unfair it was that she couldn't have her phone repaired. Amelia finally stated, just above a whisper, that she didn't have the money right now. It was a minor admission, but a crucial one. It was the first time she had openly acknowledged her limited resources. It was the beginning of the end for their denial. The truth of their situation began to seep in. They were beginning to realize that their privileged existence was dependent on me, the person they had so easily discarded and despised. The free ride was ended, and they were beginning to feel the bumps in the road. It was a brutal but necessary awakening. My absence was making itself felt. Not long after the phone incident, Amelia confronted me. Of course, she was upset. She accused me of being childish and disregarding my obligations. That word, responsibilities, stayed with me. It indicated how she saw me, not as a partner, not as a father figure, but as someone with commitments to meet, a provider, a walking ATM. She kept blaming me for everything that was going wrong. She felt I was abandoning them, being selfish, and not acting like a man. She tried to make me feel guilty, as if I were the terrible guy. It was all a projection, of course. She was projecting her own failings onto me. I let her rant. I let her say everything, and when she paused for breath, I asked her a simple question. I questioned her why she had never defended me, and why she had always supported the children, even when they were disrespectful. I questioned her why she had let them treat me the way they did. And that is when it happened. That's when the truth eventually emerged. She sneered, and I mean sneered, and said, "Because I agree with them, Thomas. You were never really their father." It felt like a slap in the face, but it also confirmed everything I had assumed. But it did not end there. She went further. She actually stated that she had warned the kids not to let me manage them. "I told them not to let you control them," she claimed. "I raised them alone before you, and I can do it again." That was the real kicker. It was not simply passive passivity, it was deliberate long-term undermining. She had intentionally promoted their disdain and poisoned their minds against me. Daniel and Mia were standing in the corridor, arms crossed, with smug expressions on their faces. It seemed like they were enjoying the show. At that point, I thought, this is it. This is who they really are. Not the sweet, innocent children I had tried to love and care for, but spoiled, entitled brats, enabled by their manipulative mother. Despite the hurt and betrayal, I felt relieved. It was over. The charade was over. I had an answer. There was no ambiguity and no space for doubt. I knew without a doubt that I had made the right decision by walking away. The reality was unpleasant, but also liberating. I was finally free. But things worsened before they improved. Amelia's rage, combined with their own sense of entitlement, drove the kids to act out even more. It began with tiny things. My personal possessions would disappear. Then some crucial work files vanished from my computer. I began to suspect they were teasing me, but I had no proof. The situation then escalated. One morning, I discovered my car had been keyed, a long, deep mark along the side. That's when I realized I needed to do something. I discreetly installed security cameras inside and outside the home. I didn't tell anyone, including Amelia. I only wanted to gather proof, and I succeeded. A few days later, I caught Daniel and Mia on video in my closet. They were laughing, ripping up my garments and destroying them with scissors. It was purposeful vandalism. I did not challenge them. I did not yell or scream. I just stayed quiet. I documented everything. I've saved the video clip. I took pictures of the damage. I gathered all of the menacing texts they'd sent me, evidence of their growing anger. I was playing along, letting them believe they were winning while secretly planning my departure. I realized I had to defend myself, not just emotionally, but legally. I knew things were going to get bad, so I wanted to be prepared. I was preparing my case, accumulating the ammunition I'd need to fight back if necessary. It was a sad and pathetic scenario, but I was resolved to handle it with as much respect and calm as I could. I was not going to come down to their level. I was going to be smart, strategic, and quiet. The next step was to see a lawyer. I described the problem and showed him all of the proof I had obtained. He listened quietly, nodding occasionally, and when I finished, he told me I had a solid case. We discussed divorce, and he even offered a restraining order due to the children's growing animosity. I also filed a police report regarding the property damage. It felt strange to report my stepchildren to the police, but I knew it was necessary. I needed to keep an official record of their actions to protect myself from any accusations or legal challenges. It was another step in the process of breaking relationships and freeing myself from this toxic environment. Then, one afternoon, while Amelia and the children were gone, I packed a bag. I didn't take much, just the necessities, the things that were most important to me. I left everything else behind, including the furniture, appliances, and material possessions I had accumulated over the years. They weren't important. What was crucial was my freedom and peace of mind. I left an envelope on the kitchen countertop. The divorce papers were inside, along with copies of all supporting documentation, such as the police report, images of the damage, and screenshots of the threatening texts. It was a formal act of separation. There was no going back. I went out of the house and did not look back. I got into my car, the one with the long scrape on the side, and drove away. I didn't have a plan, really. I just knew I needed to get out of the toxic environment I was living in. The last phase was financial. I stopped all joint accounts and denied Amelia access to my assets. It was a harsh move, I admit, but it was necessary. I had to limit her capacity to continue enabling the children's entitled behavior. I needed to make it apparent that the gravy train had halted. It was the final cut of ties, the ultimate act of departure. It was over. Amelia reacted as one could have imagined. She contacted me several times, leaving furious voicemails accusing me of being a coward, abandoning them, and being a bad person. She claimed she could live without me, that she didn't want my money, and that she would be better off without me. It was just bluster, of course. She was in denial and refused to acknowledge the reality of the situation. I did not return her calls. I did not react to her texts. I've just blocked her number. I declined to engage in additional dispute. I had spoken my piece. I'd taken my stand, and I was finished. I needed to focus on my own well-being and create a new life for myself. Then the children began messaging me. At first, they sent the same careless, arrogant messages they had always sent, but the tone gradually shifted. They began to sound apprehensive and even sorry. They apologized for their actions, admitting that things were challenging, and that they were struggling without my help. Finally, I got a message from Mia, the younger one. It was only 3 words. I miss you. It was a big change, but it was too late. The damage was done. The trust was broken. I couldn't return, even if I wanted to. I stayed mute. I did not respond. I recognized their regret, but I remained solid in my decision. I'd learned a harsh lesson and was determined not to make the same mistakes again. I gave them everything I had, and they threw it back at me. I was finished. My silence was my response. It was my way of saying, you made your choice, and now you have to live with the consequences. So, that is my story. It's not pretty, but it's genuine, and it taught me some essential things. The most important rule is to never allow others to take you for granted. Never beg for respect. Never waste your energy on individuals who do not appreciate you. And if you feel used or insulted, move away. Do not hesitate. Do not look back. It's a difficult lesson to learn and even more difficult to apply, but it's necessary for your own well-being and self-respect. You deserve to be treated with kindness, respect, and love. And if you don't get it, you have the right, or obligation to walk away. Some individuals only recognize your worth after you're gone, and by then, it's too late. It's a terrible truth, but it is nonetheless a truth. Do not wait for them to recognize your worth. Know your worth and act appropriately. It is not about selfishness, it is about self-awareness. It is about protecting your heart, mind, and soul. Thank you for reading. I hope my story can help someone out there who is going through something similar. Remember that you are not alone, and you deserve to be happy. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. Choose yourself. Now to the next story. 9. My wife hired a trainer to lose weight. Now, she has filed for divorce and started flaunting her new life online, even starting an OnlyFans account. Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let us keep this channel growing collectively. Thank you very much. Now, let's begin the video. What's up everybody? It's Dave here. Buckle up, because my life recently became a whirlwind. I'm 34, a typical warehouse manager living in Columbus. My life was not glamorous, but it was consistent. I had an excellent career, a great home, and was married to Carla. We had been dating for 5 years, married for 3, and I believed we had a good thing going. Sure, we weren't the romantic pair from TV, but we made it work. Bills were paid, we had date evenings, and the occasional disagreement was simply typical married stuff, or so I thought. Carla decided to embark on a major fitness adventure approximately 6 months ago. It came out of nowhere, but I was already on board. She joined an elite gym downtown that resembled more of a spa than a gym. She hired a personal trainer, Justin, and soon began discussing meal prep, macros, and detox programs. I did not mind. In fact, I encouraged her. Everyone should feel good about themselves, right? Plus, I believed it was simply a phase, similar to her brief knitting passion or her interest in tarot cards. At first, I even pitched in to assist her. I began taking on more of the housework, such as dishes, clothes, and groceries, so she could devote more time to her workouts. I figured that was a way to show her I cared. However, things began to change gradually, and not in a positive way. Carla's ego grew in proportion to her loss of weight. She got fascinated with her reflection, spending hours in front of the mirror perfecting her gym attire or photographing the perfect progress shot for Instagram. She wasn't doing it just for herself. She wanted an audience. I remember once suggesting that we see a movie together. It was Friday night, and I figured we could unwind like old times. She scoffed. Dave, I don't have time to sit around, I have goals to crush. Goals? What goals? I inquired. We weren't discussing running a marathon or conquering Mount Everest. She was simply lifting weights and drinking green sludge. But I just shrugged it off. Perhaps I was being unreasonable. Then came the morning, which began like any other. I was half asleep, nursing my coffee before heading to work, while Carla was drinking her normal kale spinach catastrophe smoothie. She was dressed in her exercise clothes and swiping through her phone as if her life depended on it. She unexpectedly says, "I deserve more in life." I glanced up, still sleepy. "Huh? More of what?" She set down her smoothie and glanced at me, very serious. "My marriage is holding me back, Dave. I'm filing for divorce." I promise, I assumed it was a joke. I even laughed, thinking she was joking with me, but she wasn't. Her expression was stone cold. "I've outgrown this," she replied, as if I were an old piece of furniture she was about to discard. "You wouldn't understand," she explained. I sat there, fully unprepared. My wife, the lady I'd spent years with, casually dropped this on me like it was no big deal. I tried to digest her words, but all I could feel was a mix of amazement and wrath rising in my chest. "What do you mean you've outgrown this?" "Outgrown what?" I questioned you. She sighed, as if I were a child with too many questions. "Dave, I've been working on myself, trying to be the best version of me. And frankly, this life doesn't match my potential anymore. I want more than this house, this routine, this you." Her remark struck me. She did not even sugarcoat it. She saw me as part of the problem. Our existence together was no longer good enough for her. She grabbed her workout bag and walked out the door without saying goodbye. I sat there, staring at the half-empty glass of green sludge she'd left behind, wondering what the heck had happened. The day at work was a blur. I went through the motions, but my thoughts were focused on Carla. Was this real? Was she really abandoning me? We had had disputes previously, but divorce? It was so sudden and premeditated, and the way she said it, as if she'd been practicing this speech for weeks, made it plain she'd already made up her mind. Over the next few days, the flaws in our marriage became more clear. She hardly spoke to me unless it was to divide the house or set up mediation. She began staying out late, claiming she was at the gym or with friends. Her phone was glued to her hand, and her Instagram was flooded with selfies and messages like, "New chapter, who this?" and "Living my best life." Each post was a punch in the face, a reminder that she'd already moved on mentally, even though the paperwork hadn't been signed. One night, while looking through my own social media, I saw she had deleted every photograph of us, wedding photos and anniversary messages. It was as if I had been removed from her life totally. Meanwhile, her new photos were flooded with likes and comments from people praising her. "You're glowing. Such an inspiration." It made me sick. None of these individuals realized who Carla really was or what she was putting me through. Another night, I overheard her on the phone as I was preparing for work. She was in the kitchen, speaking to someone in that phony, syrupy tone she used when she wanted something. "Yeah, I just feel so free now," she explained. "I'm finally doing what makes me happy." She paused and giggled. "He doesn't even get it. He's stuck in the past." That was when it hit me. Carla wasn't simply leaving me, she was reinventing herself, and I was the anchor she was letting go. But here's the thing, I'm not the type of man to just roll over and accept it. She expected to steamroll me and go away with everything, but she was in for an unpleasant awakening. This was simply the beginning, and Carla might expect a fight. But wait, things get worse. One afternoon, I'm having lunch at a bistro near work. I was minding my own business, looking through my phone, when I overheard these two guys at the next table. They're talking about a fitness model they discovered online. I didn't pay much attention till one of them said her name, Carla. My stomach sank. They were giggling as they discussed how she had some premium content to promote. At first, I thought, no way, not Carla. But then one of them pulled up her Instagram on his phone. It was my Carla. They discussed how she had begun teasing an OnlyFans account by placing links in her bio, such as for the real workouts. My blood boiled. This was not merely a fitness phase. She was turning her newfound freedom into a full-fledged thirst trap for money. When I arrived home, I confronted her. She was seated on the couch, scrolling through her phone as if nothing had occurred. "Carla," I asked, attempting to remain calm. "What the hell is this OnlyFans thing I'm hearing about?" She looked up, unaffected. "It's my body, Dave, my choice, and it's none of your business anymore." I couldn't believe she had the nerve. "None of my business? We're still married. You're out here selling yourself on the internet while I'm trying to hold our lives together." She rolled her eyes, as if I were some ancient relic who didn't get it. "I'm not selling myself, it's content creation. Plenty of people do it. Besides, it's not like you're paying my bills anymore." That's when it struck me. Carla wanted more than just a divorce. She wanted a new life. A life in which she was the star, the main character, and I was simply an extra she had written off. She was neither embarrassed nor remorseful. If anything, she felt proud, as if she had finally discovered her real calling as an internet spectacle. Her actions continued to grow over the next few weeks. She began dressing as if she were auditioning for a reality show, with tight clothes, sky-high heels, and makeup applied like icing. Every time she walked out the door, she appeared to be heading to a red carpet event rather than the grocery store. The titles got worse. Living My Truth, No More Holding Back. And the one that made me want to toss my phone. She's not a wife anymore, she's a force of nature. The arrogance. While Carla was out playing superstar, I was left to deal with the consequences, lawyers, paperwork, and so on. Carla, however, was not as untouchable as she had believed. My lawyer, Steve, an absolute gem, had been doing some investigation. It turns out she has been seeing a gold digger, but with a gym membership. I believe you can guess who I'm talking about. Stay tuned, everyone. Things are going to become messy. I will provide an update as soon as possible. Update 1, what's up again, Reddit? It's Dave, your favorite soon-to-be divorced dude, and I have a front row seat to my ex's drama-fueled glow-up disaster. If you've been following along, you know that my wife, Carla, decided she was too good for this life, abandoned me, and has been parading around town like a fitness celebrity. But first, let's talk about Justin, the man who has been fueling this entire catastrophe. Yes, her personal trainer. Really unique, right? The moment I heard his name, I realized it wasn't simply another trainer-client connection. Justin was the type of guy you'd expect to see on a reality dating show. Shredded, spray-tanned, and about the size of a puddle. He was all charisma, biceps, and smirks, as if he had wandered out of a horrible rom-com. Carla was very open about their relationship. One day, she strode into the home after her workout, virtually glowing. Justin says I'm the strongest I've ever been, she boasted, without looking at me. Yeah, Carla. I'm sure Justin also told you he's never trained anyone like you before, because that's his script. A few weeks later, she stopped pretending it was just an exercise. She began mentioning his name in everyday conversations. Justin's taking me to this new vegan restaurant, and Justin said this protein powder is life-changing. Meanwhile, I'm standing there like, do I look concerned? Carla wasn't simply dropping names. She was parading him as if he were the prize. Word spread quickly. Friends began contacting me with sightings of Carla and Justin throughout town. They were holding hands, laughing, and behaving like the Instagram couple of the year. Carla did not even bother to hide it. She came home one night, as brash as ever, and said, "Just so you know, Justin and I are dating now. I think it's time you accepted that." "Oh, I accepted it, all right," I said. Accepted that my wife had turned into a full-blown caricature of entitlement. She'd already psychologically divorced me, so what did it matter if she added a public affair to her resume? The more I discovered about Justin, the hotter my blood became. He wasn't your typical gym bro. This individual had a past. My lawyer, Steve, who deserves a freaking medal at this point, did some research and discovered that Justin had pulled this stunt previously, twice actually. He had a pattern. Find a married woman, shower her with compliments and affirmation, and then urge her to leave her spouse. When the dust settled and the money stopped coming, he'd disappear like Houdini. Justin was a professional home wrecker. It was not love, it was a hustle. He pumped these ladies up, made them believe they were invincible, and rode their wave until it was no longer convenient. And Carla? She was the ideal mark. She sought attention and approval, just like a fish craves water. Justin had her wrapped around his finger, and she didn't realize it. The worst part was his smug attitude about it. I heard from mutual acquaintances that Justin was already discussing their major plans. He reportedly told someone, "Once the divorce is finalized, Carla and I are going to build an empire." Empire? Dude, you are a trainer, not a tech mogul. But, certainly, dream big. Justin was banking not just on Carla's money, but also on mine. Carla demanded half of my funds, spousal support, and even tried to take the house. She imagined she could stroll into court, play the victim, and walk out with a golden ticket to her and Justin's new life. Little did she know, my lawyer had receipts, and I wasn't going to give up. Let me paint a picture of Carla and Justin as a couple. Imagine a guy who only owns tank shirts standing next to a lady who suddenly believes she is a Kardashian. They were all over social media, posing in front of nice cars, not their own, and tagging themselves at costly restaurants. I'm guessing Carla was paying the tab. It was as if they were screaming, "Look at us, we're winning." But anyone with half a brain could tell they were overcompensating. Their partnership was not without flaws, however. Justin's over-the-top personality began to conflict with Carla's developing diva mentality. One night, I heard Mom on the phone in the kitchen, shouting with someone. "I don't care what your exes said about you, Justin. You're with me now, and I deserve better than your baggage." I didn't catch the rest, but it was enough to convince me that their little fantasy wasn't as flawless as they wanted everyone to believe. As much as it irritated me, there was something strangely fulfilling about seeing Carla go all in on Justin. She'd put everything on this guy, believing he was the key to a better life, and it was only a matter of time before the house of cards collapsed. My lawyer and I were making certain of that. Carla's confidence dipped after mediation. She entered the room acting like Fiancé and exited looking like a deer in headlights. It was beautiful. Justin, her ever-loyal hype guy, did not even attempt to console her. He simply sulked behind her, scrolling through his phone. That was my first indication that their small empire was not as strong as Carla had led everyone to believe. But let's go back a little bit. Mediation was not only a setback for Carla, it was a calamity. She expected to come in, cry a little, and go with the house, half my savings, and spousal support. Carla's counsel portrayed her as an underappreciated wife who gave up all for my mediocre goals. Do you have mediocre dreams? I'd been working my ass off at this warehouse job for years. Steve, my lawyer, was prepared. He provided spreadsheets, screenshots, and even credit card stubs to back up my claims. Carla had been depleting our joint account for months before she filed for divorce. We're talking luxury spa days, expensive outfits, and $200 dinners while I'm eating leftovers and attempting to find out what went wrong. Steve made sure the court saw every dime she squandered. Then came Justin's skeletons. His previous romances, his habit of sweet-talking married women, and how he always bailed when the money didn't flow as planned. What about the cherry on top? Steve discovered messages from one of Justin's exes urging Carla to be cautious. Of course, Carla refused to listen. She felt she was unique. Justin's smirk was also gone. In fact, he appeared uneasy. He probably saw his little scheme was crumbling in real time. Carla attempted to defend him, stating, "Justin isn't like that anymore." However, the evidence was stacked against them. The judge didn't buy their act. By the end of the session, it was evident Carla wasn't going to walk away with the riches she expected. Justin? He appeared to be already plotting his exit route. Carla began acting out after the mediation session. She wasn't as arrogant anymore. She continued to post uplifting rubbish on Instagram, but the captions became frantic. Instead of living my best life, Carla said things like, "Growth isn't always easy, but it's worth it. Keep reminding yourself of this." Justin, on the other hand, revealed his true colors. He was still present, but not in the way Carla described. He began skipping their public appearances, no more hand-holding at posh restaurants or couple goals gym photos. Word spread that he was already flirting with one of his other clients, a younger woman who did not come with Carla's baggage. Typical. Carla was late getting home one night. I was still living in the house with her at the time, as I couldn't legally kick her out. She stumbled in, looking completely exhausted. I didn't say anything, I simply sat there on the couch, observing her. She placed her fancy bag on the counter and sighed dramatically, as if she wanted me to ask what was wrong. But I was not playing that game. I just went inside my room. Carla tried to act normal the next morning. She went around the kitchen preparing one of her kale smoothies, but her typical smugness had vanished. "Justin's been busy with his clients," she announced unexpectedly. I did not respond. I knew she wanted me to bite and ask about him, but I wasn't giving her what she wanted. A week later, the real drama began. Steve called me. Carla apparently filed some last-minute paperwork in an attempt to claim additional assets. She demanded emotional compensation for the stress I had given her during our marriage. Yes, you read it correctly. Carla believed she might acquire more money by blaming me for her midlife crisis. I couldn't believe their arrogance. Steve, being the legend that he is, was already ready for this crap. He filed a countersuit, demonstrating how Carla had depleted our funds and emotionally manipulated the situation to her advantage. He even used her Instagram posts as evidence. The subtitles alone were great, proving that she wasn't some stressed-out victim, but rather a self-absorbed diva living her best life at my cost. Around this point, Justin officially quit. He stopped showing up to their gym sessions, stopped returning her calls, and even blocked her on Instagram. Yes, it's blocked. Carla was losing it. I could hear her pacing around the house, calling him repeatedly. "Justin, call me back. We need to talk." She sounded desperate, and it was actually satisfying. Finally, one of her companions spilled the tea. Justin had moved on to another client, someone younger, flashier, and, more crucially, not involved in a difficult divorce. Carla was devastated. She tried to keep things cool by posting cryptic comments like, "Sometimes people aren't who they seem," and, "You can't build an empire with someone who's playing games." But everyone understood what had transpired. Her ideal man had bailed the moment things became tough. This is when Carla's entitlement began to shatter. She has stopped attending the gym. Her once glamorous ensembles were replaced by sweatshirts and unkempt hairstyles. She even stopped posting on Instagram for a spell, which was really surprising. It was as if her entire identity was linked to Justin and the vision of their new life. Without him, she had no idea what to do. One evening, she attempted to speak with me. "Dave," she started, standing in the living room doorway, "I think we need to reevaluate everything. This divorce, it's been hard on both of us." I gazed at her, waiting for the punchline. "What are you getting at, Carla?" She sighed heavily, as if she were the victim here. "I just think maybe we rushed into all of this. I mean, we had good times, didn't we?" I nearly laughed. "Carla, you filed for divorce. You told me I was holding you back, remember? Now that Justin's gone, you're having second thoughts? Unbelievable." She tried to play the compassion game by mentioning how lonely she was and how much she had given for this marriage, but I wasn't buying it. "Carla," I interrupted. "You made your bed. Now lie in it." Carla's tiny fantasy world was collapsing, and I didn't have to raise a finger. Karma was doing all of the work. That's all for now, Reddit. I'll keep you posted after the final court ruling, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. Update 2. Hey, Reddit. Dave is back. You've stayed with me this long, so prepare for the grand slam of this whole disaster. If you've been following along, Carla, my ex-wife, believed she could go to court, take everything, and begin her new life with Justin, her personal trainer. But karma came calling, and we're now in the home stretch. Let me explain how the courtroom drama unfolded and why Carla probably wishes she hadn't gone in there. Court day eventually arrived. Carla stepped in, but not with the usual diva strut I'd come to expect. No fancy blazer, no cocky grin, just her and her lawyer, marching into detention with the confidence of 2 children. She must have realized things weren't going to go her way. The energy was off, and I honestly enjoyed every moment of it. On the other side, I was with my lawyer, Steve. He arrived prepared, carrying a thick binder that could have served as a doorstop. I was not nervous at this time. I had nothing to lose. Carla had already thrown all of her punches, and I was still standing. Today was about ensuring that I not only survived, but also won. Carla's lawyer began by presenting her emotional compensation claim, which I mentioned earlier, portraying a picture of Carla as a patient wife who had been emotionally exhausted by my lack of support for her personal development. Apparently, my failure to support her fitness journey, also known as her affair with Justin, was a sort of neglect. Steve, my lawyer, let her lawyer speak for a long, enabling them to dig their own hole. Then it was our turn. Steve began by meticulously demolishing their argument. He demonstrated that I had not only supported Carla, but had gone above and above on her so-called fitness journey. He provided evidence that I had taken over home tasks, modified my work schedule, and even pushed her to pursue her ambitions. He read aloud text conversations in which I offered to make her healthy meals, encouraged her gym sessions, and even suggested we join couples fitness classes to deepen our bond. Then Steve dropped the bombshell. Carla's emotional compensation claim was not only unfounded, it was a clear attempt to conceal her own emotional carelessness. He showed emails and texts in which Carla openly mocked me to her friends, calling me dull and dead weight. He also had screenshots of her gushing about Justin and referring to me as her backup plan. The final nail in Carla's coffin came when Steve addressed the financial side of her claim. He showed us our bank statements, revealing how Carla had diverted thousands of dollars from our joint account to fund her lavish lifestyle. Carla's lawyer attempted to argue, but Steve refused to give up. He disclosed the ultimate piece of evidence, Carla's journal entry, which Steve had subpoenaed. Carla had written about her master plan to leave me, get whatever she could out of this marriage, and use the settlement money to start a new life with Justin. When the judge read that, his expression was one of complete amazement. The courtroom was dead silent as the judge flipped through the documents, his stern look becoming more intense with each page. Carla sat next to her lawyer, looking agitated, her polished nails nervously pounding on the table. Her confidence, which she had displayed so brazenly during mediation, had vanished into thin air. I sat across from her with my lawyer, Steve, feeling a mixture of expectation and joy. This was it. The moment Carla's tale would crumble. The judge began by considering Carla's emotional compensation claim. "Mrs. Patterson," he continued, his voice steady yet forceful. "Your request for emotional compensation lacks any substantive evidence." He stopped, allowing the words to sink in before continuing. While emotional anguish is a relevant component in some situations, this court expects concrete and demonstrative evidence. Your claims are based on subjective sentiments rather than facts. He focused his attention on Steve's counter-arguments. He detailed phone conversations, bank accounts, and Instagram posts that depicted a far different picture than Carla and her lawyer had attempted to present. Mr. Patterson, the judge continued, speaking to me for the first time. You've shown a clear and consistent pattern of support for your wife throughout the marriage. The evidence presented indicates no signs of emotional maltreatment. In reality, it indicates the reverse. You went above and beyond to meet her requirements and expectations. Carla's lawyer attempted to interject, but stumbled over an objection that the evidence was taken out of context. The judge silenced him with a raised hand. The context is clear, counselor. Let him move on. The judge next went to the financial element of the issue. He painstakingly examined the evidence Steve had supplied. Mrs. Patterson, the magistrate said in a stern voice, you withdrew over $223,000 from your joint accounts in the period leading up to this divorce filing. These funds were not used for household expenses or shared needs. Instead, they were spent on luxury items, high-end dining, and personal indulgences. The court finds this behavior irresponsible and in direct violation of your marital financial obligations. Carla shivered in her seat, her face flushed deeply crimson. Her counsel attempted to downplay the expenditure, stating that it was part of her coping technique during a tough period. The judge wasn't impressed. Coping mechanisms do not justify financial recklessness, he stated emphatically. Then I came home. Carla had boldly asserted her right to half of it, stating she had contributed emotionally, if not financially, to its upkeep. Steve was prepared for this. He presented paperwork proving that I had paid the mortgage in full, maintained the property, and even handled renovations, all while Carla contributed nothing. The judge did not mince words. The house will remain the property of Mr. Patterson, his announcement stated. Mrs. Patterson, you have no financial claim to it based on the evidence presented. Carla's jaw dropped. Her lawyer whispered something into her ear, but she waved him away, too astonished to answer. The judge was not done. Furthermore, he went on. Due to the unauthorized use of marital funds, Mrs. Patterson is ordered to reimburse Mr. Patterson in the amount of $23,750. You could have heard a pin drop. Carla's lawyer sagged in his chair, clearly defeated. Carla appeared to have lost her breath. Her carefully constructed narrative had fallen spectacularly, leaving her with only the repercussions of her actions. The decision was final, no appeals or loopholes. The judge closed his folder and announced, "This court is adjourned." I relaxed back in my chair, a sense of relief sweeping over me. Justice had been served, and I felt free to breathe for the first time in months. The anxiety in the air as we left the courtroom was apparent. Carla's lawyer was already packing his suitcase and avoiding eye contact with everyone. Carla walked following him, her head lowered. For someone who had entered this process with the confidence of a reality TV star, she suddenly appeared completely defeated. Steve rubbed my back as we walked out. We did it, he added with a slight smile. I nodded, appreciating his work. He had not only supported me, but also revealed the truth about Carla's manipulating ways. As I left the courthouse, I couldn't help but look back at Carla. She remained standing there, staring blankly at the floor. For a fleeting moment, I felt a twinge of sympathy, but it immediately disappeared. She had caused this pandemonium, and now she had to face the repercussions. Over the next few days, the consequences of the decision became abundantly clear. Carla was told to leave the residence within 30 days, and I made sure to enforce it. She tried to stall, stating she needed more time to organize her affairs, but I wouldn't budge. I informed her that she'd had plenty of time to prepare while she was busy bragging about her affair with Justin. But reluctantly, she packed her belongings and moved out. It was surprisingly pleasant to watch her leave on that final day. She piled her luxury bags into an ancient automobile, which one of her friends had reportedly loaned her, and drove away without saying goodbye. The house, which had before been filled with tension and hostility, felt unexpectedly tranquil. Carla's financial position deteriorated dramatically. She was left to fend for herself because she no longer had access to my income or the marital funds she had been draining. She attempted to sell some of her fancy clothes and handbags, but it was insufficient to repay the sum she owed me. Word spread that she was borrowing money from friends, who were rapidly bored of hearing her sob stories. Justin, however, has completely vanished. He didn't respond to her calls or messages. Carla unexpectedly arrived at the residence one night, roughly 2 weeks after the verdict. I opened the door to see her standing there, her once perfect beauty replaced by unkempt hair and haggard eyes. She looked like she hadn't slept for days. Dave, she replied gently, her voice cracking. Can we talk? I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. What do you want, Carla? I inquired. She hesitated and wrung her hands. I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I made mistakes, big ones. I let Justin manipulate me. I got caught up in this fantasy, and I ruined everything. Her comments seemed scripted, but the despair in her eyes was genuine. She didn't come to apologize out of true remorse. She was here because she had no other options. I don't know what you expect me to say, I said, my tone calm but forceful. You made your choices. You chose Justin. You chose to try and take everything from me, and now you're dealing with the fallout. Tears welled in her eyes. I just can't. We at least be civil? Maybe start over? I have nothing, Dave. I'm lost. I looked at her for a time, feeling nothing but resolve. Carla, I gave you everything, my support, my trust, my love, and you threw it all away. You don't get to come back now and ask for a second chance. That's not how this works. She fell down sobbing on my porch, but I didn't move. After a time, I returned inside and shut the door, leaving her alone with her regrets. Since then, I've moved on. Carla, according to what I've heard, is still battling to get back on her feet. She's destroyed bridges, lost friends, and is now facing the consequences of her own actions. Sometimes karma doesn't just knock. It kicks down the door. Carla was left with only the repercussions of her deeds.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.